Evenings at 6 o'clock.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway,
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel. It's 8 o'clock and this is Mark Dolan Tonight. Between now and 11, the winner of this year's Apprentice, my big opinion, and 3 of the top political pundits in the country. But first up, as he faces jail for paying hush money to an ex-lover, is it game over for Donald Trump? With a massive trade deal in the offing, are we finally seizing the opportunities of Brexit? And was Rishi Sunak wrong to spend £500,000 on private jets in just 2 weeks? Also, ex-Corrie star, the brilliant Charlie Lawson, tells us about his horrific ordeal travelling by train this week. You won't believe your ears. He is still raging. Lots to get through, and it's Friday. It's been chucking it down all day. Has it stopped raining? We can only hope. But it's warm, dry and sunny here at Mark Dolan Tonight, and we'll have plenty of fun along the way. So pop something cold and fizzy into the fridge, and I'll see you after the headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Mark. Yes, I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB Newsroom. Good evening to you. Stormy Daniels, the adult film star at the centre of Donald Trump's indictment on criminal charges, is predicting violent consequences of his appearance in court. It is in an interview with The Times. Ms Daniels says whatever the outcome, it's going to cause violence, injuries and death. She says although she fears the reaction of Trump's supporters, this proves he's no longer untouchable. Trump has become the first US president in history to face criminal prosecution over an alleged payment to Ms Daniels to keep quiet about their relationship a week before the 2016 election. Trump denies wrongdoing. His former vice president says it's a witch hunt.
It's clear to the overwhelming majority of the American people that this is nothing short of a political prosecution being affected by a Manhattan DA who literally campaigned on bringing charges against one particular American. And I must tell you that that should be offensive to every American, left, right, and center. Every American deserves equal treatment under the law.
This news into us in the last hour. A man has been charged with the murders of a father and son in Cambridgeshire. The 66-year-old Stephen Alderton has also been charged with possession of a firearm. He is due to appear in court tomorrow. The 2 victims, named as the 57-year-old Gary Dunmore and his 32-year-old son Josh, died near Huntingdon on Wednesday. The Prime Minister says Britain's new trade deal will help unlock the benefits of Brexit for people across the UK. Britain's joined 11 Asia and Pacific nations in a trade pact that will boost exports by cutting tariffs on things like cars, chocolate, cheese, gin and whiskey. It's expected to be worth £1.8 billion over 10 years, although critics say it will only boost the economy by 0.08%. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, says we should be focusing on the EU. But the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, believes it's an opportunity for growth.
The significance of joining the Pacific Trade Bloc is that this is one of the fastest growing areas in the world. Around half of the world's middle-class consumers will be in this bloc of countries by the end of the decade. It's a massive opportunity for British exporters, and combined with the very attractive business taxes that we introduced in the budget, a £9 billion cut in corporation tax, that will mean that the UK economy has very big long-term growth opportunities.
Ukraine's foreign minister has described Wimbledon's decision to lift its ban on Russian and Belarusian tennis players this summer as immoral. Those players will now be able to compete at Wimbledon as neutral athletes. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba has urged the UK to deny those players visas. TV online and DAB Plus radio. This is GB News. Now get ready. It's Mark Dolan tonight.
My thanks to Aaron Armstrong, who's back at 9. Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. A special one for you this evening. Coming up, is it game over for Donald Trump as he faces jail for paying hush money to an ex-lover? I'll be speaking to a former politician and top lawyer, a man that's got plenty of dodgy exes. It's Jerry Hayes. Skeletons in the cupboard, let me tell you. With a massive trade deal in the offing, are we finally seizing the opportunities of Brexit? That's the topic of my big opinion after 9. But I'll be asking Maverick Tory MP, this guy, Michael Fabricant, who, let's be honest, is always worth hearing. Now, was Rishi Sunak wrong to spend £500,000 in 2 weeks on private jets? We'll be debating that with 2 viewers of Mark Dolan tonight, because your opinion is what matters to me. Also, former Corrie star Charlie Lawson was subjected to a horrific ordeal whilst travelling by train this week. You won't believe the story. He will tell it in his unique way before 9. I've got no doubt he'll break broadcasting rules with a 4-letter outburst. So cover your ears, Charlie Lawson, before 9 o'clock. So in my big opinion, some welcome good news for Brexit Britain. That's after 9. In my take at 10, the scandal of millions not being able to get a dental appointment. What a kick in the teeth. Plus my top pundits, tomorrow's front pages, and the winner of this year's Apprentice, Marnie Swindles. A packed show. Let's start with this. Can you tell it's Friday night? My team have already gone to the pub. A New York grand jury has indicted former President Donald Trump on charges related to hush money payments that he made in 2016 to the adult film star Stormy Daniels to cover up an alleged affair that Mr. Trump denies. But that's not the only investigation he's facing. Donald Trump also faces scrutiny in other ongoing investigations that could come with charges of their own. This guy is knee-deep in legal trouble. The proceedings from New York, Georgia, and the Federal Department of Justice all have the potential to upend the 2024 presidential race, in which Trump has already announced his candidacy. Possible criminal charges and a subsequent arrest could have a dramatic effect on his 2024 campaign. Never before has a former president been charged with a crime. So, is it game over for Donald Trump? My Friday sidekick for the next hour is top barrister and political commentator, the very learned Jerry Hayes. Hi, Jerry.
Hi.
I mean, this question is a political and a legal one, which is your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Is it game over for Donald Trump,
No.
politically or legally?
No, neither. We don't know. Maybe he did pay this woman. But the Republicans will say, it's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. It's a fix. Like, the election was stolen. And the Democrats will say, no, of course he's guilty. The trouble is, America is in the middle of a civil war. The legality doesn't matter. The truth doesn't matter. And that's really, really depressing.
So do these proceedings risk making a martyr of Donald Trump possibly propelling him into the White House next year?
It could well do. It could well do. It's just so utterly awful. I think the more dangerous allegations against him is what's been happening in Georgia, suggestions that there was fiddling with the electoral roll, that sort of thing. But again, the Republicans, the mad side of the Republican Party, what will they say? No, it's a lie, it's a lie, it's a lie. And the Democrats will say, it's a lie, it's a lie, it's a lie. This is a bad position to be. You're not having decency, you're not having a proper review of what's happening, and I suspect you're not having legality either.
Can you tell me about the political implications of Donald Trump, former president of the United States, having his fingerprints taken and getting one of those iconic mugshots, just like Hugh Grant and Al Capone?
It looks bad. It looks terrible. But how are the mad side of the Republicans do it? This is what you expect. This is a man who had the election stolen by Biden. They've now got their own Justice Department. Don't forget, it is a Democratic Justice Department. They're now going to do him over.
Isn't it a little harsh talking about the mad side of the Republican Party? We're talking about tens of millions of people that voted for Donald Trump in the last two elections.
No, I don't think it's harsh at all. There's a lot of people who are quite mad. A lot of people are quite mad.
Tens of millions of Americans? Half the country? Can they all be wrong?
No, of course they can't be, but there's a mad side. I'm trying to be balanced here.
You're failing
well, OK. Bernie Saunders, the Jeremy Corbyn of American Democrats, he is mad as well. And that's the awful thing. There's this terrible division. No one is really, I suspect, thinking of Middle America, people who just want to be safe on the streets, black people who want to be safe on the streets, people who want their jobs. No, it's all about this psychodrama with Trump, which is terrible, and it's not good for democracy.
Now, is there a chance that Trump could wind up in jail?
I think it's highly unlikely. It would take years and years and years and years, and then the mad side of the Democrats will say, this is terrible, you can't put him in jail. And then the mad side of the being fair, of the Democrats will say, well, this is wonderful. This is America. This is the greatest democracy in the world, the great nuclear power. And we've come to this.
You are a former Conservative MP. Do you not think it's in Britain's national self-interest to have Donald Trump in the White House, a man who spoke about a trade deal with Britain done within weeks, versus Joe Biden?
I don't think it makes much difference. It's the State Department who decides these things. The trouble with Donald Trump is he doesn't believe in trade agreements unless it is against the interests of everybody else. He's a protectionist. We don't want protectionism. One of the things we want with Brexit, and I know you're going to be talking about it a little bit later, one of the deals that Kemi Badenoch did, absolutely right, the Pacific deal, wow, that's rather good news. That's I'm a Remainer, but that's a Brexit freedom. So let's forget all the arguments about whether Brexit was right or wrong. It's there, and we can make it work. And Rishi Sunak has made it work.
Potential percentage chances of Donald Trump running for high office next year, that he gets through these legal travails and actually runs.
He has to do it.
And does he win? What is the outcome of the next election?
He has to do it because he's got all sorts of difficulties and with his campaign funds. So he has to push. It's possible he could win. DeSantis is a pretty ghastly individual too. So what are the what have the Republicans got to offer? What have the Democrats got to offer? Isn't that so depressing?
Indeed, you do look at Trump and Biden and think, is that the best they've got? We'll get to that topic later on in the papers at 10:30 with my top pundits. But coming up next, are we finally getting the benefits of Brexit? Maverick Tory MP Michael Fabricant is next.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion. People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit off.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one.
Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like
Absolutely.
on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my common sense crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel. Britain has signed its biggest post-Brexit trade deal as it linked up with a string of fast-growing economies on the Pacific Rim. In a major breakthrough, the UK was accepted into the Trans-Pacific Partnership, opening up trading opportunities with a market of 500 million people. The deal is expected to add at least 1.8 billion to the UK's annual GDP over time, and will be a major boost to exporters. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, formerly known as the CPTPP, currently comprises 11 economies: Australia, Japan, Canada, Chile, Malaysia, Mexico, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, Brunei and Vietnam. The grouping has a combined GDP of almost £10 trillion. So it's good news for the economy. Is this a post-Brexit triumph or a damp squib that pales into insignificance compared to the deal we had when we were in the EU? Who better to speak to than a man more Brexity than the whole of the ERG put together, the Conservative MP for Lichfield, Michael Fabricant. Hi, Michael, and happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, Mark, and I'm glad to see that you've got Jerry Hayes there, my old friend.
Definitely. We'll bring him into the conversation shortly as he's an arch Remainer. But can we talk about this deal? Is it all it's cracked up to be, Michael? After all, you're an entrepreneur as well as a politician, so you know about the bottom line.
Well, it's a darn sight better than I heard on the BBC this morning, and indeed what some other people have talked about, because they've been saying that it would only be about a 0.08 gain for the British economy. Actually, those figures are back to 2014, 9 years ago. But the real big exciting thing is this. One is that we've been able to do it because we wouldn't have been allowed to do it if we were still in the European Union. Two, that the Chinese want to join, and South Korea, which will absolutely dwarf then the size of the single market. And three, America, if you believe the New York Times, is also interested in joining. But, you know, this isn't at the expense of the European Union. When we had Brexit, everyone was saying, well, that's it, we'll never be able to trade with Europe again. And what happened? We actually got a free trade deal, the first free trade deal ever for any country not in the European Union, and we've got that. And interestingly enough, this deal with the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, it's the very first time that any country from outside the Pacific Rim has been allowed to join. So to do a Jerry Hayes, another triumph.
Well, let's bring Jerry into this. Jerry Hayes, of course, your former sparring partner on the backbenches of the Conservative Party. He's now a top barrister. That's right. He's gone straight. He's got a proper job.
He's never gone straight.
Well, we'll move swiftly on. We'll move swiftly on from those allegations. I'll see you in court. What do you think? Do you share, Jerry, Michael's optimism about this new deal and Brexit Britain?
Yes, I do. I mean, I'm a Remainer. I voted Remain. But we've got to make Brexit work. It's done. We've had 3 elections over this stuff. And I give credit to Kemi Badenoch, who's a great Secretary of State for Trade. And I think it was, I can't remember the other person. I don't think it was Liz Truss, because she didn't do anything except crash the economy.
Well, no. Liz Truss is the person that instigated this whole process. She's the one that began the application to join this trading bloc. So I think Liz Truss gets credit too, doesn't she, Michael?
She filled in the form.
Yes, she does. She does. But, you know, it's great to hear Jerry say what he's saying. You know, my best mate is the Mayor of the West Midlands, Andy Street, and I've known him for 33 years. And Andy voted Remain. In fact, he wouldn't speak to me for a couple of months after, well, a couple of weeks anyway, after the result of the referendum. But his attitude is exactly the same as Jerry. Look, we're out of the EU. We have the potential to do really well. We are jolly well going to have to make the best of it. But actually, in my view, and those of many economists, including your own economist, Liam Halligan, will actually do better out of the EU than if we were constrained within it. Because there are other deals we've done as well on medicines and other stuff we would never have been permitted to do because EU rules prevented that from happening.
And crucially, Michael, this is not a political deal. It's about free trade. So no loss of sovereignty.
That's right. And that's what we wanted with the EU. Gosh, how long ago was it? I voted to join the common market or whatever it was
75,
called then.
the referendum.
Pardon?
75, the referendum.
75. Harold Wilson.
1975. I don't believe I'm that old. But anyways,
yes, you
I just about voted for it because it made sense. But you know what? It all changed into a much bigger operation and quite a slow and lumbering operation. And having worked, you know, in Europe and in the United States and Australia, I saw for myself how important it was to have the freedom to be agile. One of the problems with the EU is that there are so many different interests, so many different countries all fighting and squabbling with each other, some with the right of veto. It actually makes the EU far less agile. And, you know, one of the things with the TPP, that Trans-Pacific Rim, and you actually talked about all those countries that are members of it, all the projections for their growth is far, far greater than that of the EU. But you know what? I don't believe in all these projections anyway. Why? Because they said, the experts, that we would be in recession. They got it right on Germany. Germany is in recession, but Britain isn't. We're doing quite well.
Jerry?
Can I just ask my dear old friend Favers one thing?
Oh, you two, get a room.
Oh, yeah, we'll get a room later. But at the end... Thank you, darling. But at the end of the day, look, we're in the Conservative Party together. Rishi Sunak is a decent man. He's a competent man. He can win the next election. Will you do your part to stop the madness within the Conservative Party who are ripping us apart? Will you just get up and say, with all the members of the ERG, all the members of the right wing, we must support Rishi Sunak because we don't want Starmer?
Well, I totally agree with you. And actually, I think what happened the other night when we voted on the Northern Ireland Protocol showed that people realised, look, all this squabbling has got to stop.
Yep.
Starmer became, 20 points ahead in the polls. It's reduced a little bit now, but not that much, because of all the infighting. And the infighting was wrong. I mean, you know, as Mark knows, I would have still kept Boris Johnson, but I know that's a controversial. I know a few people don't like that idea, but no, I totally agree with you on Rishi, and I think most of the ERG too. There's about 100 members of the ERG, but only 22 or 23 actually voted against the Northern Ireland Protocol. Which, look, we had to make compromises, but you know, speaking to friends of mine over in Europe, they had to make compromises too. And whenever you do an agreement, whether it's a business deal or whether it's a political deal, there's got to be some compromise on both sides. But, you know, I think we did pretty well out of that deal. And more importantly, Northern Ireland has too. And that's why in the end, after a long, hard inner soul searching, I decided to vote for it. And I was pleased to see many other ERG members voting for it too. So, yeah, you're right, Jerry. This is not good television, actually, because we should be attacking each other. We're agreeing. But
no,
you're right,
the Tory
Jerry.
party.
Well, a couple of things.
Together.
We're going to get some smelling salts for Jerry just at the mention of the name Boris Johnson. Michael, I will put a spanner in the works, though, because the OBR are suggesting an impact on the economy of 4% from Brexit. So this new deal with other countries will barely touch the sides.
Yes, of course, the OBR are precisely the same people who predicted that we would have gone into recession for the last 2 quarters. And you know what? We've been in growth for the last 2 quarters. So, you know, I studied econometrics, which included economic forecasting. And believe me, it's more difficult to forecast the economy than it is the weather. And we know how inaccurate that can be at times because there are so many variables. And you know what? Don't believe in forecasts, believe in what actually happens. And Jeremy Hunt has actually got more money to play with now than he previously thought he had. Wish he'd been a bit more generous in the budget, but don't quote me.
Well, he's saving it for next year. It's going to be the Father Christmas budget, I predict it, and I'll be on air reporting on it, blimey, just under a year from now, and it will be the pre-election budget. Jerry, what do you think about this figure from the OBR, an impact of 4% on UK GDP from Brexit?
Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because Brexit's been done. Fact is, we've got to make it work. Simple as that.
Okay.
It really, it's no point us all going to say, oh, they lied about this and we lied about that. That was Project Fear from the Remainers. That was Project Fear. It doesn't matter. We've got to make it work.
OK, and last but not least, your mate, the aforementioned Boris Johnson, Michael, was grilled by MPs in the Commons, not last week, but the week before. Do you think there's any way back to high office for your old mate?
Well, I was there for the 3.5 hours of I'll tell you what, it wasn't non-stop fun. And I was being texted from various American friends of mine watching it on the internet. And they were saying, like, we cannot believe, Michael, that you're indicting somebody for eating cake or not eating cake. Are you all mad?
Oh,
and then somebody else said to me, my God, this committee.
It was about lying to the House of Commons. Yeah. And that's the problem. Yeah, well, I know you love the boy, but... You know, come on.
Well, what do you think, Jerry, as a barrister, do you think that it's going to be difficult for Boris to come back from this? Does he need to admit to having acted recklessly in order to prevent a by-election from being provoked?
He wouldn't admit to anything. I mean, he doesn't know the difference between,
But he's got to say, I mean, you'll have seen the detail.
He doesn't know the difference between the truth and a lie.
If the punishment...
But it's old potatoes. He's finished. He's not coming back.
Okay.
Let's support Rishi Sunak and win an election if we can.
Michael, this is a strategic issue, a challenge for Boris and his team. Does he admit that he acted recklessly in order to prevent provoking a by-election?
No, he doesn't say that. But can I just come back on one serious point?
What did he say, Fabis?
About
Come on.
whether he...
You
Jerry, just
did
let me
that
have a word in edgeways, yeah?
What did you said?
One of the
what
things
did he
that
say?
he said, in giving evidence to the committee, was that if I thought I was lying, why would I have allowed so many photographers, the official photographer, to release photographs?
Arrogant.
And why were so many civil... Hang on, Jerry. Why are so many civil servants fined? Because it was the civil servants who gave advice that in a... I don't want to go over old arguments again, but he believed that, because he was being told by the civil servants, that the rules are that if you work in an organisation and you are a very, very strictly controlled bubble, then you could do it. And look, you had Starmer drinking booze, which certainly wasn't the case with Boris. All he had was a glass of orange juice, as far as we could see. And Starmer wasn't prosecuted. So you have to wonder why it was that in a Labour, where they had a Labour police and crime commissioner in Durham, they didn't prosecute, but where they did have a Labour police and crime commissioner in the shape of the mayor of London, they did decide to prosecute when it was Boris. Now, I think a lot of people think it was all very, very unfair.
Well, if we
Whether
were
he was reckless on the advice he got is another matter. We'll have to see. As for his future and whether there'll be a comeback, well, I don't think it'll be anytime soon. But, Boris is a phenomenon. Who knows in 10 years from now?
A phenomenon as is Michael Fabricant. Of course, the authorities, the police authorities in Durham would challenge those allegations made by Michael, as would the Labour Party. But it's all about opinions on Mark Dolan tonight. Before you go, chaps, an easy question to finish on, Michael and then Jerry. The date and result of the next general election. Michael.
Well, I never do predictions. I think it'll be in the autumn of next year. And the result, I think it'll be close whatever happens. But you know what? They all said, and Jerry will back me up on this, they all said we were going to lose by a landslide in 1992. And we won.
Exactly.
Jerry Hayes, the date and result of the next general election.
January...
2025?
Yep, because that's the last date. We're locked into that, I suspect. And I think there'll be a Tory majority of 25, which may not be very good, but it's better than having Labour.
Well, look, a fascinating debate. My thanks to Michael Fabricant, the Conservative MP for Lichfield. Michael, have a great weekend. We'll catch up soon. And I'm delighted to say that the well-oiled Jerry Hayes will be with me for the entirety of tonight's show. He's going to join the panel as well after 9, which is an absolute delight. Next up, should Rishi Sunak have spent £500,000 of taxpayer money on private jets in just 2 weeks? Where the hell did he go? We'll find out next.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Now, Rishi Sunak took private jet trips costing almost £500,000 in just over a week last year. That's got to be more than Kim Kardashian and Madonna combined. This figure prompted opposition claims that the PM is out of touch and unable to lead on green issues. A Cabinet Office document detailing overseas prime ministerial travel showed Number 10 spent just under £108,000 on private jet travel to and from the COP27 summit in Egypt, flying in on the 6th of November and going back the next day. A week after, he set off to the G20, that was in Bali, Indonesia, coming back on the 17th of November, a round trip that cost more than £340,000. That is one return flight. So is it wrong for Rishi Sunak to splash the cash travelling around the world at the taxpayers' expense? To debate this, let's speak to two fantastic viewers of Mark Dolan tonight, Robin in St Albans and Amanda in East Sussex. Amanda, £500,000 in just over a week. What's going on?
Hi, Mark. Great to see you again. No, this is insane. I mean, after COVID and, you know, everybody being locked down and lots of people losing their jobs and their livelihoods and businesses, this is so insensitive of Rishi Sunak and really, really out of touch. I mean, how does he think that people are going to want to vote for him if he can't even have any affinity with, you know, the day-to-day lives of everyday people? I mean, he really needs to get a grip with regards to connecting with the public, because I think he's done a really bad job of that so far. And this thing with the private jet travel, in my mind, it just smacks of almost laughing in the face of the public after what we all went through during COVID. And the way I see it is, during COVID, they created this state of feudalism, which we're still in. And it seems to be getting worse because the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and all these policies that they're coming out with, that they're forcing and imposing on us, like net zero, and, you know, like they did with the COVID vaccine, the vaccine passports. It's all almost as if we've got no choice in the matter anymore as to how we're supposed to live. But yet the elite, like Rishi, they can take a private jet or get in a limousine whenever they feel like it. And apparently it's no problem. And I don't agree with it at all.
Yes, and we'll be the ones living in 15-minute cities, not the elite. I've got to agree with you. During the pandemic, I did feel that Britain had become a semi-democracy at best. Now, Robin, a round trip to Bali, £340,000. The in-flight entertainment must have been amazing.
Well, Mark, I'm sorry, but I have to disagree with Amanda. But I want to tell you a little story. So when I worked in advertising, when I was in America, we wrote an ad for one of the American airlines, and you had to picture it. There was a Civil War general standing in his tent, and the headline was something like, "Why do generals need their own tents?" And the whole purpose of this commercial was to talk about the fact that CEOs of companies, they need space. They need to think about and plan for where they're going, and they need to be away from their team. I mean, if you are one of the Civil War soldiers, you don't really want to be overhearing the fact that you're probably in trouble or something. So it's about space. And I in my advertising days, I would often fly from London to LA. As we all know, it's a 10-hour flight and a 9-hour time difference. I was meant to land, go straight to meetings for 2 solid days, including dinners, including early breakfast, get on a plane, fly back again, and go straight to work. You can't do that if you're sitting in economy. If you're sitting in economy, you've got to spend 6 days because you've got to spend a day in a hotel either way, getting over jet lag. So I think that for leaders of industry, of which Rishi is as the Prime Minister, I think it's absolutely right that he should fly on a private jet to get from A to B as quickly as possible. He's on that jet, he's working. I mean, he's not sitting there watching movies. He's not sitting there reading a book. He's doing what most top business people do, which is spend the 9 hours, the 6 hours, however long it is, working. And that's what he's doing. Because I think that, we're not talking Boris here. We are talking a serious businessman in Rishi Sunak. I mean, can you imagine the scene at Luton Airport with Rishi turning up at 6 a.m. in the morning to join the EasyJet queue to get on speedy boarding and get on the plane and then have to wait, as we all have to wait when you do speedy boarding at the bottom of the stairs before they let you go to the plane. Then you sit on the plane and then you're in the middle row and you can't get out. I mean, absolute disaster. The man has important things to do and he needs to get from A to B as quickly as possible.
Well, let's bring Jerry Hayes in on this conversation if we can. Barrister and former Conservative MP. You're an admirer of Rishi Sunak, Jerry. I am too, I'll be honest with you. But how can you justify £340,000 as a round trip to Bali?
With great ease. Robin had an oasis of common sense. Amanda, I'm afraid, I suspect she lives in a different world from everybody else. With the greatest respect, Amanda. I mean, we're not in lockdown now. You talk about lockdown. You talked about lockdown passports. No, we're not doing that now.
Well, it was threatened. It was threatened, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it didn't happen.
And Amanda fought tooth and nail. She used to come on my radio show ranting and raving about vaccine mandates, about mask mandates, and about COVID tyranny. And she was right.
Well, God bless her, but she's wrong now. The fact is, you've got the Prime Minister going around the world. He needs comms. He needs security. Actually, he's got a whole load of journalists in the back of the plane as well, which is a very good thing, who have to pay for their travel. So how should he do it? Should he go by train to Bali? A bit of a tricky one. Indonesia. Well, you can't go by train. You can't go by bus. You can't go by bicycle. You could probably do a pedal, but it would take a very long time. So, Amanda, I'm sorry, darling. Nah.
Amanda, what about that lovely, fancy private jet that represents the United Kingdom? It's got the Union flag on its wing, and it's quite literally flying the flag for UK PLC, Amanda.
Yeah, that's a great idea, but that's not what Rishi's been doing. I mean,
well, how should he travel, Amanda? How should he get there?
If you let me answer, Jerry, I'll let you know. I mean, he could take regular, aircraft, but sit in business class. He doesn't have to sit in economy. I never said that, Jerry. I didn't say he had to travel like the rest of us plebs, if that's what we're referred to by lots of people now. But everyday people don't like to see their Prime Minister acting as if he's better than everybody else. We want someone who is in touch with the people, like Winston Churchill was. Winston Churchill, Jerry, used to get on the tube and go and talk to the people.
No, you just saw that in The Crown. He never went on the tube. That was The Crown, Amanda.
This elitism is what the people are angry about and getting more and more angry about. This elitism and, you know, travelling as if you're better than everybody else. People are not impressed by that. We understand if you need to get from A to B really, really fast, then there are exceptions. I never said there weren't. But on a general basis, he should be travelling on a regular aircraft in business class, sure, no problem, but not in private jets all the time.
But
It's
how
not
does he do the
necessary to travel in private
communications,
jets.
Amanda? How does he do the communications? The
Okay.
top secret communications?
Last word to Robin. Robin, go for it. Briefly, if you can.
Absolutely, yes. So here's my point on the thing about why you can't travel business on normal aeroplanes. I wouldn't want to be on an aeroplane with Rishi Sunak. I mean, I'm very worried about security. I'd rather he was on a private plane nowhere near me.
Yes.
Well, there you go. Pithy and to the point. Amanda, always love having you on the show. I've always got your back. Don't be shouted down by those two bullies. Those finger-wagging millionaires.
Millionaires!
Robin, great to see you again. We'll catch up soon. And Amanda. And, of course, I'm delighted to say that the wonderful Jerry Hayes is with us after 9. He's part of my punditry panel. And it's going to be very, very busy. We've got my big opinion coming up at 9 with the biggest trade deal since Brexit. Rishi is proving the doomsdayers wrong. Very excited about that debate at 9 o'clock. A massive trade deal. Good news on a Friday night. Also, we'll be talking about a disgraceful situation. 11 million people waiting for a dental appointment. That's my take at 10. But next up, ex-Corrie star, the amazing Charlie Lawson, with a story of something truly horrific that happened to him this week on a train. You won't believe it. You will spit out your tea. That's next.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel. That's right, Mark Dolan Tonight with you tomorrow from 9 and on Sunday at 9 as well. And do check out our fantastic new Saturday night lineup. Brilliant stuff with, I've got to say, great critical response as well from our viewers. Now, not all of the news that happens on TV, on the radio or in a newspaper is what really matters. Every day, many ordinary incidents pass by that could justifiably make front page news. No better example than what happened to the fantastic actor, former star of Corrie and many other TV hits, Charlie Lawson, this week. Hi, Charlie.
How are you, Mark? Listen,
I'm very well.
I have to tell you, son, you're an awful man for an exaggeration. It wasn't exactly horrific, however, it was mind-bogglingly such a load of crap. Let me tell you what happened.
I was horrified when I heard the story. Tell us more.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, I was down doing the lovely Nana Aqua's show, and very kindly, GB News had sorted out my travel and what have you, so it's very, very good of the boss. Anyway, after the show, we went for a couple of glasses of wine and had a very pleasant exchange, and then I went off to Euston to get my train. And Julie got on the train. It was about 9:30 or something and it was Avanti Northwest or whatever. It used to be Virgin, but it's been taken over by Avanti. Now, so I got on, and very kindly, I was travelling first class. So I got to the coach that I was allocated, and lo and behold, there was only one other person on the coach. So, being a sort of a guy who likes a bit of a chat or whatever and a glass of wine, I sat down. I sat in the double chair on the left-hand side, pointing forward, and he was on the outside, opposite me on the foreberth, so to speak. So I engaged him in conversation, and very soon, of course, things turned to politics. And I explained that I'd been down talking to GB News about various things and had been a regular over the last period of time. And pretty soon it came down to the fact that Keir Starmer couldn't describe what a woman was. And this gentleman was kind of on Keir's side, and I, of course, wasn't. And anyway, the conversation progressed, and of course, the obligatory trans issues came up, you know. But we were having a quiet face-to-face debate and what have you, and the ticket collector came walking towards us, looked at our tickets and went past us into the next carriage. Then on the way back, she went past us again, and we were still talking about the trans issue. Look, very, very quietly, because there was no one else there, and I wouldn't have dreamt of discussing subjects like that had there been other passengers around. The next thing was she came marching up the train and told me that I would please refrain from discussing this, having this conversation, because some people might be offended. At which point I nearly fucking fell over. You know what I mean? And I said, whoa, I'm sorry.
Can I apologise to anyone watching or listening?
No. It was beginning with a B.
For the choice language you heard there. Charlie was very angry, but it doesn't justify those expletives. So sincere apologies. Carry on, though. But we understand how angry you were. So this ticket inspector has told you to not express these opinions because somebody might be offended. Welcome to, I don't know, communist China or North Korea.
Well, I mean, I pointed out to her that there was no one else in the carriage, and then I suggested that we talked about this, and she wasn't having any of it. So I said, well, look, I tell you what, stop the train at Stoke and arrest me, because you're not going to stop my having a private conversation and all. Anyway, at that point, she turned on her heel and muttered something under her breath and disappeared. But I was just completely shocked. And I apologise, Mark, but that spelling was B for balls, right? Not the F word. So anyway, but
fair enough.
Look, I mean, what in the name of God? What society are we living in, for God's sake? You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Now, listen, you mentioned the train guard, the ticket inspector was a lady. Are you sure it's a lady and not a man?
Well, actually, I'm quite good at that, and trust me, she was a lady, so she was. And listen, and I was so shocked that I think I actually probably said, "Are you serious, dear?" Which may have inflamed the situation somewhat. But I swear to God, I was furious, and I can't believe that we're living in a society where, you can be offensive when you're in a private conversation. There was no one else on the coach, and we were having a political discussion about trans issues, about Keir Starmer, about things we discuss on GB News, which is why we live in this great country, because we have freedom of speech, not to be told by some bloody idiot, conductor or whatever the hell you're allowed to call them or whatever. I'm not going to be dictated to by anybody having a private conversation. As you say, we're not living in bloody China.
No, well, let's bring Jerry Hayes into this. Jerry, I'm very concerned about this story. I do think it's horrific what happened to Charlie, because it reflects how we just don't live in a culture of free speech anymore. Charlie's entitled to say that he thinks trans ideology, which questions the idea of biological sex, is bonkers or wrong, but he's getting quietened down by a train guard.
Yeah, I think that's rather sad. I'm not sure it's horrific.
I think it's illegal, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
Is it harassment?
No, excuse me, 100 guineas, please.
Has
it's
Charlie
not illegal.
got a case?
No, of course he hasn't. Look, he's right to be really fed up. A disgraceful thing for someone to say to him. He's entitled to a private conversation.
But it's because he was saying the wrong things. I don't think it was because he was effing and jeffing. It's because he was saying that there is a difference between a man and a woman, and this prison guard has conflated that as something offensive.
But there is a difference between a man and a woman. It's pretty...
Well, don't say that on a train.
Well, I'll try not to. But, I mean, look, come on, Charlie. It's not...
Charlie,
nobody died, darling.
Charlie, I maintain that it's horrific because I am a champion of free speech. Will you be more careful about what you say on public transport going forward? Are you going to change now as a result of this?
No, of course I'm not. I'm me, and I shall remain me. And don't you dare patronise me, Jerry, because you'll come off...
I'm not patronising, I'm agreeing with you, matey.
We eat people like you for breakfast where I come from, so just wise up.
But excuse me, matey. I spent 3 years in the Northern Ireland office. I know you guys very well. So, come on, I was agreeing with you.
Wig on, son, for God's sake.
I was agreeing with you, Charlie.
There you go.
Get nasty,
Sonny. You sound very patronising, so you do, so just wise up.
There you go. You see, look, my guests don't pull their punches on GB News. There you go, a little bit of a boxing match there, and no bad thing. Mark Dolan tonight is the home of Big Opinions, and we very much enjoyed the Big Opinions of Charlie Lawson. Charlie, you keep saying it like it is wherever you are, and my thanks to Jerry Hayes, who's going to stick around after 9, and he'll be responding to my Big Opinion, which is next. The biggest trade deal since Brexit. Britain is proving the naysayers wrong, and we're annoying all of the right people. That's next.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
Is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Dubes & Co. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. In my big opinion, with the biggest trade deal since Brexit in the bag, Britain is proving the naysayers wrong and annoying all of the right people. In the big story, as the EU give petrol and diesel cars a stay of execution, is the case for net zero crumbling? We'll be asking top Telegraph journalist Ross Clark. My Mark Meets guest is this year's winner of The Apprentice, Marnie Swindles. How did she convince Lord Sugar that she was worth £250,000? You're hired. Big guests, big stories, and always big opinions. A lively 2 hours to come. First, the headlines. He's with me all evening. The very excellent Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you, Mark. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. Let's get you up to date with the headlines. The adult film star at the centre of Donald Trump's indictment on criminal charges says it could lead to violence, injuries and death. Stormy Daniels told The Times she's received death threats, and although she fears the reaction of Trump's supporters, this proves he is no longer untouchable. Trump has become the first US president in history to face criminal prosecution. It's over an alleged payment to Ms. Daniels to keep quiet about their relationship a week before the 2016 election. Mr. Trump's lawyer says he'll plead not guilty on Tuesday, and his former Vice President Mike Pence says it's a witch hunt.
It's clear to the overwhelming majority of the American people that this is nothing short of a political prosecution being affected by a Manhattan DA who literally campaigned on bringing charges against one particular American. And I must tell you that that should be offensive to every American, left, right, and center. Every American deserves equal treatment under the law.
The social media influencer Andrew Tate and his brother have been released from a jail in Romania and placed under house arrest until the end of April. A Romanian judge released them on appeal. Tate and his brother Tristan are being investigated on allegations of sexual assault, people trafficking and of being involved in organised crime. The pair, who have been held in custody since December, deny wrongdoing. A man's been charged with the murders of a father and son in Cambridgeshire. 66-year-old Stephen Alderton has also been charged with possession of a firearm. He's due to appear in court tomorrow. The two victims, named as Gary Dunmore and his son Josh, died in villages near Huntingdon on Wednesday. The Prime Minister says Britain's new trade deal will help unlock the benefits of Brexit for people across the UK. Great Britain's joined 11 Asia and Pacific nations in a trade pact that will boost exports by cutting tariffs on things like cheese, chocolate and whisky. It's expected to be worth £1.8 billion over 10 years, although critics say it will only boost the economy by 0.08%. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, says we should be focusing on the EU, but the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, says it's an opportunity for growth. Ukraine's foreign ministers described Wimbledon's decision to lift its ban on Russian and Belarusian tennis players this summer as immoral. They will now be allowed to compete as neutral athletes in all British grass court tournaments, including Queen's. Dmytro Kuleba, though, has urged the UK to deny them entry visas. And Volodymyr Zelensky says Ukraine will never forgive the Russians responsible for atrocities in the town of Bucha. Ukrainians have been marking the anniversary of the town's recapture after 33 days of occupation. International investigators are in the process of collecting evidence. Ukraine says Russian troops committed war crimes there. That is a claim that Moscow denies. TV online, DAB, Plus Radio and tune in. This is GB News. Now, get ready. It's Mark Dolan.
My thanks to Aaron Armstrong, who returns at 10. Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. In my big opinion, with the biggest trade deal since Brexit in the bag, Britain is proving the naysayers wrong and annoying all of the right people. In the big story, as the EU give petrol and diesel cars a stay of execution, is the case for net zero crumbling? I'll be asking top Telegraph journalist Ross Clark. My Mark Meets guest is this year's winner of The Apprentice, Marnie Swindles. How did she convince Lord Sugar that she was worth £250,000? In my take at 10, millions of Brits now can't get a dental appointment. I'll be addressing this national scandal shortly. With talk of 100 genders, will men and women soon be a thing of the past? Tonight's newsmaker is Cara Dansky, a top US feminist, who says no, no, no. Mark Dolan tonight is the home of the papers, with tomorrow's front pages from 10:30, with three top pundits who haven't been told what to say and who don't follow the script. Tonight we have presenter Emma Wolfe, broadcaster Mike Parry, and former Conservative MP and now practising barrister. He's now got a proper job. He's gone straight. It's Jerry Hayes. Tonight I'll be asking those pundits, should Britain introduce a tourist tax for popular destinations? Are Brits abroad a national embarrassment? And have women who go grey let themselves go? Not my comment, but someone else's. We'll respond to it shortly. Plus your emails, especially the spicy ones, mark@gbnews.uk. Get them in now and throughout the show. And this programme has a golden rule. What is that rule? We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's get to work and let's start with my big opinion. Mark Dolan tonight is a lot of things. It's the home of viral videos. It's the home of free speech and diverse opinion. And where possible, it's the home of good news. Our glass is half full, and we will seek out the positives where we can find them. And look no further than a story which will surely silence Remain voices everywhere. Britain has announced an amazing deal to join the snappily titled CPTPP, which I thought was a medication for a sore throat. In fact, it's the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, which comprises Japan, Canada, Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, Mexico, Peru, Chile, Australia, New Zealand and Brunei. It jumps overnight to 16% of world trade once Britain joins, leapfrogging the combined EU. It's a trading bloc worth over £17 trillion. Nice work if you can get it. All of this unlocked, we're told, thanks to the Prime Minister's Brexit breakthrough, the Windsor Framework. Now, whilst I voted Remain in 2016 due to my concerns about short to medium-term economic disruption, which I cannot deny is happening, I personally instantly accepted the result. A, because I'm a Democrat, and B, because I knew there would also be massive positives too. And mark my words, they will keep on coming. Britain's robust approach to stopping the boats, because these perilous crossings are a humanitarian, national security and economic disaster, is only possible as an independent, sovereign nation. Trade deals with countries all over the world are only possible as an independent, sovereign nation. Ditto for a strong foreign policy. And this new partnership with the fastest growing trading bloc on planet Earth is only possible as an independent, sovereign nation. Should America and China join, which is hoped, well, lots going to happen, including South Korea joining as well. We will ultimately enjoy tariff-free trade with a vast portion of the world, far bigger than the EU. And that was the point of Brexit, for Britain to adopt a global worldview economically, diplomatically and culturally, which of course reflects our nation's story. Now, this group, TCP or whatever they're called, is not political. It's merely a trading bloc, allowing Britain to sell our world-class goods and services more easily. And that's what membership of the EEC was in 1973 when we joined, before it became an overtly political project and a sovereignty power grab. If the EU was still simply about free trade, we'd still be in it. But in the end, the Brits rejected the optional extras that came with membership. Free movement, the threat of a one-size-fits-all currency, the inability to negotiate trade deals with the rest of the world, and payments of £22 billion a year, which over 2 decades is the entire cost of the pandemic. We've opted out of all of that with a new vision for an independent, internationalist country that can strike partnerships with anyone. Now, during the Empire, our footprint was a truly global one. And we can once again take baby steps towards becoming a truly global presence, not under the thumb of Brussels and their political project to create a massive country, a United States of Europe, which is, of course, the wet dream of the globalist elite. Writing in The Telegraph this week, former chief Brexit negotiator, a good friend of mine, Lord David Frost, said the following. He said, this deal matters because the CPTPP is where the growth is. With Britain a member, it has the same GDP as the EU 27, but it will grow much faster in future, increasing the benefit of Britain's new access to the world's most dynamic markets. Now, of course, you'll continue to see negative headlines about Brexit and about Britain because we dared to choose our own destiny and exit the monolithic, unaccountable and undemocratic bloc headquartered in Brussels. We have escaped legal, diplomatic, economic and political tyranny as a result of Brexit. And this new deal with the rest of the world is an added insurance policy against ever rejoining the EU. The only place we're going back to is the future. Oh, and by the way, the latest figures suggest that Britain has avoided recession too. And if that's not good enough, how about this beauty from my former colleague here at GB News, Andrew Neil? Andrew has been very wise. He's tweeted the following. Sterling has become the best performing currency among developed economies this year, gaining 2.3% against the dollar so far. Cue much wailing and gnashing of teeth among the extensive Twitterati who can't abide anything that undermines their narrative that the UK is a basket case. Well done, Andrew. I knew there was hope for you. The future's ours and the future's bright. Bring on global Britain. With my glass half full, I'll drink to that. So what's your view? Mark at gbnews.uk. I'll get to your emails very shortly, but reacting to my big opinion tonight, my brilliant pundits, presenter Emma Wolf, broadcaster Mike Parry, and practicing barrister, ex-Tory MP and 90s TV icon Jerry Hayes. Folks, lots to get through, but your reaction to what I've said. Mike Porky Parry, great to have you back in the studio. This is good news for Britain, and Twitter will hate it.
Oh, it's fantastic news, because people are trying to compare what is the new bloc we're going into, the very snattily named CPTPP. But let's just call it the Asian bloc, OK? Let's get in with the Asian bloc. Now, at the moment, the economists are saying it's worth about the same as what the EU is worth. Difference is, the Asian bloc is growing at about 7.8% a year, and Europe is not growing at all. In 5 years' time, accumulatively, it'll be much, much bigger than anything that Europe's trading in. But the other point, which you made very saliently, Mark, is that it's a free trading bloc, OK? It is not a political group of countries that decided the best way to get on in life is to invent more and more and more red tape. Because if we all invent a load of red tape, nobody can do anything wrong, nobody moves forward, nobody makes mistakes, and we all stay where we are and we control the world, even though the politicians were never elected to control it as a political bloc, whereas in the free trade Asian bloc, we can expand around the globe. Imagine if China got involved, and imagine if America then come in, because remember, America is so huge, it's got a Pacific coast, which is basically the Pacific Rim. So it's a wonderful opportunity. I am absolutely thrilled that through all the doom and gloom that we've experienced in not properly using our freedom in Brexit or as a result of Brexit, we are now, for the first time, breaking into a really positive and really, really exciting new global power. Remember, Britain invented world trade. So why shouldn't we get back into it?
Emma Wolf, does this matter to my viewers and listeners tonight?
Exactly. You guys can use as many acronyms as you like. You can talk about avoiding technical recession. You can talk about the strength of the sterling. To me...
And so we should.
We can talk about that stuff. To me, the UK right now seems more economically, socially bankrupt. People seem more miserable, more depressed.
Emma, you need to get off Twitter. I'm going to delete it off your phone. Can I have your iPhone, please?
I don't have an iPhone.
All right.
And I don't
your Android.
I don't spend much time
Chuck it in the toilet.
I don't spend much time
on
Twitter.
I mean, look, we've avoided recession. That's a cause for celebration. Massive free trade deal with half the world.
Living standards are at an all-time low. This is 2023.
No, they're not.
People can't even get a dental appointment. You're missing the other key point, which is COVID, the global pandemic, which intervened between 7 years ago when the Brexit vote was actually passed, and our insane response would basically put our economy in the deep freeze. Everybody I know feels hopeless about the future, about this country. So I'm really sorry.
You know the wrong people,
CPTP, WEP, whatever. Well, most of the people I know are about 2 or 3 years old. They're quite chirpy, but everybody just seems...
Isn't this the problem? And isn't my old mate Andrew Neil right
to say you talk about the fact that we're coming out, inflation's going to drop...
Well, Germany's currently in recession. We're not. We were told by the Bank of England and the OBR and the IMF that we'd have a year-long recession. We've not had a single quarter of negative...
We're in growth. According to figures today, the economy's growing.
We just avoided it by 0.01%.
Isn't this, and I'm Emma's #1 fan, but isn't this about mentality now, that as we go forward and we exit the pandemic, we've got to be positive and we've got to seize upon tangibly good news like this deal?
Yeah, let me go into creepy politician mode.
Well, that's not hard, is it?
No, ooh, how wicked. No, don't let's talk the country down. We're actually doing very well indeed.
We're doing very well.
Rishi Sunak, he's competent, he's honest, unlike Liz Truss and the ghastly Boris Johnson. Those days are over.
Liz Truss was thwarted by the blob.
Oh, for heaven's sake, the anti-growth... Oh, you've been speaking to Dan Wootton, who believes it's the shape... He's a lovely man, lovely man, as ever I could get committed to a mental institution.
Disgraceful.
Oh, disgraceful things.
Dan Wootton, Britain's best journalist.
He is Britain's best journalist.
Jerry, if the blob didn't take Liz Truss down, who did?
Oh, for God's sake, because she crashed the economy, Mike. She crashed the economy. It's got nothing to do with the blob. It's got nothing to do with the IMF.
Back to the actual topic.
Yeah.
But everywhere, and I live in central London, everywhere I go, I see shops shutting down. I'm talking about people's real lives. I'm not talking about your acronyms and your figures. I am literally talking about people's real lives. You go around the country, shops closing down, cafes closing down.
But Emma, you shop online.
Pubs closing.
That's why the high streets are closing down.
I
People
don't.
like you shop
Listen,
online.
you are right. I don't want to sugarcoat reality.
I want to be hopeful. I absolutely want to look towards the future.
You're even wearing a leopard print.
Leopard print. What could be more jolly than that?
But I mean, I understand. I don't want to sugarcoat the reality. We've got horrific inflation. I had to buy Crunchy Nut cornflakes last night from the Co-op, £4.25.
£4.50 for a packet
How
of
is that?
cornflakes?
I should have just bought fags and let him starve.
Literally.
But the truth is that people are struggling. But the reason why this story is a good news story is it's about our economic growth.
Of course
if we have national income,
when that
then we
starts
can have
feeding
those public
through to real
services
people,
which
when
the
that
public
starts
crave.
feeding through, I will come on
the thing
here
is,
and
Emma
I will
Wolf,
do a cartwheel.
In a sense, Britain is a corporation and it needs an income.
There's no red tape in Asia. There is total red tape in Europe. We can't move in Europe because of red tape. And we need to cut through the red tape and get into free trading.
Look,
and that's what this is. It's not a political bloc, it's a free trading bloc. It's brilliant news.
Everything is political, but this is better news and we should be encouraged.
All right, well, listen, folks, tell me what you think, because that's all that matters. Is your glass half full, half empty? What do you think of this deal to sign up with massive trading nations like Canada and Japan and all the rest of it? Let me know, Mark at gbnews.uk. Coming up next in the big story, is the push for net zero crumbling? That's next.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We've got this fantastic new trade deal with a bloc bigger than the EU. Why are the media not celebrating it? Well, we're celebrating it here on Mark Dolan tonight. My glass is half full, let me tell you. But your emails are coming in thick and fast and always make for fascinating reading. Charles has said, Mark, people are depressed because we have a high-tax, socialist, authoritarian government. Socialism makes people miserable. Earning your own money without having it heavily taxed, providing for your own family rather than relying on the state, and living your life without the government telling you what to do is the recipe for happiness. That feels, Charles, like a distant memory. Hi, Mark. If we are an independent sovereign nation, why don't we run coils of barbed wire along our beaches and borders, as Poland does and other EU member countries? It's legal and reverses the message. Colin, thank you for that. Catherine says, my glass is empty. The cost of living is out of control. Emma, your panellist, is right. What has the everyday, hard-working person got to look forward to? Utilities far too high. Cannot put heating on because I can't afford it. Whilst the greedy government are quite content being able to afford everything. It's disgusting. I don't recognise the world we now live in. Catherine, thank you for that. My heart goes out to you. I can hear that you're struggling and that you're very concerned about the direction of this country. But keep the faith and do stay in touch with us on Mark Dolan tonight. And we're always happy to see your emails. mark@gbnews.uk. I do think our mental health has been through a battering. And yes, the economy has not helped. But are you feeling more optimistic? Is there hope for the future? Let me know. mark@gbnews.uk. Now, let's get to this. It's time for the big story. And tonight, ministers could postpone the UK's 2030 ban on new petrol and diesel car sales after the EU sensationally watered down their own restrictions amid angry opposition from German car manufacturers. The agreement passed by Brussels will now end sales of new CO2-emitting cars in 2035. That's 5 years later than planned, with no guarantees it will even happen by then. Meanwhile, the environmental group Friends of the Earth have criticised the government's revised net zero strategy, which has a greater focus on energy security and the economy. They say it falls short of the government's previously stated goals. So is the case for net zero beginning to crumble, and are Western nations beginning to lose their appetite for this expensive experiment? To discuss this, let's talk to the Mail, Telegraph and Spectator journalist Ross Clark. Hi, Ross.
Hi, Mark. Hi.
What's your reaction to this decision by the EU to give petrol and diesel cars a 5-year stay of execution?
Well, I think firstly it shows what we've probably always thought, is that the EU is run by German car makers and also French farmers. But I think in this instance, the EU has actually got it right. And, the EU and Britain initially ploughed ahead with this target of forcing electric cars on everybody and electric vehicles on everyone by 2035 without really sort of appreciating how it was going to get there. It was just sort of relying on the technology magically improving. It hasn't really. The battery technology is, it's gone forward quite a lot in the past 30 years, but it stalled a bit. And we with electric vehicles still have this problem with range, with recharging, and the cost of buying them. And don't forget, I mean, it involves about half as much carbon emissions again to manufacture an electric vehicle as it does to manufacture petrol or diesel ones. So, I mean, there are, you lightly used cars, actually, you can actually increase your carbon emissions by switching to electric. And I think, the German car industry has, it's lobbied for this. because it's appreciated that consumers just are not switching to electric vehicles in the numbers that they were supposed to. In Britain, it stalled around about 17% of the market. Pure electric vehicles, 17% of the market this February. That's actually down a little bit from a year ago. So, the public, the realisation now is that electric cars are not going to sell themselves. We're going to drive them, we're going to have to be forced to drive them. And of course, that will drive people off the road and so on. So I think it's logical. And Britain is going to have to follow suit, because no car manufacturer is going to design cars purely for the British market. And if it becomes established across Europe that other countries have ranges of cars, including internal combustion engines powered by e-fuels, then there'll have to be a standard model in Britain as well, because we can't sort of exclude all European vehicles from our roads. And, if we tried to ban the sale of internal combustion engines here, then we would leave British consumers, British motorists, with very little choice.
Ross, do you anticipate that public anger and political pressure could see the end of the net zero project in countries like the UK and across the EU?
Well, I think either, we have this sort of magical technological breakthrough on all fronts, which allows us genuinely to get to net zero by 2050, which I think is very unlikely. Or, at some point there will have to be some relaxation in that target. And the trouble is, it's a legally binding target. So, at the moment, the government has painted itself into a corner by committing itself to this target without any real idea of how it was going to get there. And the closer we get to 2050, of course, well, the more pressure the government's going to be under. And it's not just electric cars, heat pumps. The government wants us it was counting on 600,000 people a year switching their gas boilers to heat pumps. Well, it's the sales are less than a tenth of that. So I mean, the government's already falling behind its its targets on the way to net zero.
OK, let's get a brief word from my panel, if I may. And Mike Porky-Parry, you're a keen motorist. What do you think about this U-turn from the EU, who we thought had been drinking and worshipping at the altar of net zero? Quite the turnaround, isn't it?
I can't believe that the UK is now going faster into the madness of, net zero and electric cars than even the red-taped EU. I just can't believe it. Electric cars in this country can never work for a number of reasons. Firstly, if we meet the targets of the number of people who need to drive electric cars to get us to net zero, we will have blackouts. We do not produce enough electricity in this country. We haven't got enough nuclear power stations. We haven't certainly got enough windmills and solar panels to produce the sort of energy needed if you want to wholesalely switch our cars to electric. It can't possibly work. We know already now that we are way behind in providing the chargers, and people don't understand the other problems, some of which Ross has raised there, that producing an electric car is far more damaging to the atmosphere than producing a petrol-driven car. Young kids in Africa have to go down mines and dig out cobalt and all that. But also, local authorities are having to examine multi-storey car parks to see whether or not they'd be able to sustain the parking of electric cars, because they are so heavy with the huge batteries they have to carry that the car parks might not be able to sustain them. They are also terribly damaging to the atmosphere because they're so heavy. Their tyres disintegrate far more rapidly than tyres on a petrol-driven car. They are absolutely a disaster to the whole of the way of life in this country, and we should take a wholesale review of kicking back this ludicrous 2030, 2035, 2050 dateline and push it back a century.
Well, I had to go to Mike Porky Parry. He's a famous petrol head, of course. But look, the government would argue that the vast majority of climate scientists argue it's an emergency. We've got to get those carbon emissions down, is what they say. What do you think? Mark at gbnews.uk. I'm delighted to say that Emma Wolf and Jerry Hayes will be back very shortly for The Pundits, in which we're tackling a series of major issues as top cricketer Michael Vaughan is cleared of using racist language by the cricket authorities. His career is damaged along with his reputation. So, should people accused of this awful crime of racism have anonymity until proven guilty? That's next.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Reacting to the big stories of the day, the top pundits tonight, presenter Emma Wolf, broadcaster Mike Parry, and barrister and former Conservative MP Jerry Hayes. There we are. We've done a switcheroo. It's like that game. What's that game? It's not Mr. Potato Head. It's the other one. Guess Who? There you go. Or Monopoly. Listen, let's just finish that chat about net zero. Is the government losing its appetite for these green measures? After all, the EU have done a U-turn. They've delayed getting rid of petrol and diesel cars by 5 years. Emma Wolf, you're keen to contribute.
I am. I think it's a laudable aim. We've got to save the planet. But the way we're going about it is all wrong. We've just seen the government announcing their policy of moving the levies, the green levies, from electricity to gas. That was Grant Shapps a few days ago.
Mad.
No one, literally. I know one person who now has an electric heat pump, and he got it installed a few days ago. It cost him £18,000. I don't know anyone else that has an electric heat pump. People are not moving, as Ross said.
And I'm told that they're quite temperamental, these heat pumps.
Yeah, they are. The grants that the government are offering haven't been taken up. There's a huge amount of those. Then you have London. You have the undemocratically sort of Sadiq Khan literally installing low-traffic neighbourhoods all over London, which increase traffic. Look, I'm a cyclist.
Absolutely.
I don't even drive. I'm not a famous motorist.
You don't have skin in the game, but...
I don't have skin in the game, but... But they increase traffic and they increase pollution. Of course they do. They don't decrease it. Then you have ULEZ, which is this scheme whereby older, poorer drivers are being penalised for having older bangers.
Yeah.
And they can't even drive anywhere into their neighbourhood.
And they will lose their jobs.
They will lose their jobs.
My carpet fitter came round the other day. He can't afford to get a new van. He'll have to close his business down.
So they can't afford thousands of pounds to buy these electric cars, which they wouldn't be able to charge anyway.
But
so I think net zero policy is all over the place.
The climate scientists would say that the planet's on fire and that going green is a massive opportunity for jobs and for the economy.
Of course
it is a huge... Yes.
Of course it is, but we shouldn't bankrupt the economy by doing it.
OK.
Who says the planet's on fire, by the way?
Oh, for heaven's sake, just about every scientist in the world, Mike Parry.
But where? Where is it on fire? I don't see the planet's on fire.
Well, we've seen these forest fires.
Really? Have you seen the forest fires? Australia, everyone else?
There were more forest fires in Florida. No, in Florida in the 19th century than there are in this century.
No.
It's just that nobody lived there to witness them. I'm telling you.
There you go. The debate rages on. Mark Dolan tonight is the home of big opinions and of diverse opinion as well. Keep yours coming, Mark, at gbnews.uk. Now, as top cricketer Michael Vaughan is cleared of using racist language by the cricket authorities, his career, along with his reputation, is damaged. So, should people accused of this awful crime have anonymity until proven guilty? Now, Mike Parry, you know Michael Vaughan.
I know Michael Vaughan very well. I've worked with him on radio and a bit of television as well. I knew right from the start that was not the Michael Vaughan I knew, OK? Yorkshire's an incredible place, you know. It's very diverse. It's probably the most diverse county in the country.
Could be.
And that's because they attract so many cricketers from all over the world, you know, from Australia and Asia and everywhere. And Michael got on with everybody that we ever worked with. You know, he was fantastic. What I'd like to ask the question is this. Michael Vaughan suffered a suspension from working at the BBC, right, when all this happened. He's now been cleared. Will he be invited back to the BBC? Because if that was Gary Lineker would have been invited back within 6 seconds. I wait to see whether the BBC are going to offer the olive branch to Michael Vaughan.
And why is that? Why is that? Because Gary Lineker is the multi-million-pound golden boy.
Yeah.
That's why.
Well,
Vaughan, they don't care about. If it was you, they'd throw you onto a bus.
Well, Michael's been incredible to work with.
Take two men, I think, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And it would... It's a bit harsh,
Or
Mark.
women.
It's a bit harsh, yeah.
It's all muscle, though.
But what I'm saying is he's given so much to the game, and then to be, you know, ostracised like this and basically judged before there's an inquiry he'd done something wrong. And it was one of those throwaway statements, wasn't it? There's too many of you lot and all that kind of... Talking about cricket, not talking about race or talking about individuals, talking about the business he was employed in.
But he was unwise, Mike, wasn't it? It was unwise in this day and age
Jerry,
to say something like that.
Are you saying that you've got to watch every word you speak now in this country?
If you're in broadcasting, yes.
Because there's somebody hanging around waiting to grab you.
Yes.
But once again, it's the Twitterati who seem to be running the world. Only a very small percentage of people in this country are on Twitter, but they're very loud. They have great voices, and too many of us go, oh, it must be true. It's on Twitter.
You're a top lawyer. Is there a way to protect somebody accused of such an awful crime? This guy's career is irrevocably damaged now, even though he's not found to have made
we
these
have the
remarks.
whole concept of cancelling people. If there's an actor who has been accused, maybe wrongly, of a sexual assault or something like
Game
that...
over.
Or game over. Even if he is acquitted, even if it was dropped, he is finished. That's why I've been saying all my life, and I prosecute and I defend rape cases, things like that. I think people who are accused of offences like sexual offences should actually not have their names put forward to the public unless they've been convicted or pleaded guilty.
Emma?
Yeah, mud sticks, doesn't it?
It does. And that terrible, insidious line...
And unfortunately, when you have, helicopters and police... Remember with Cliff Richard? It was swooping over his house. I'm still not clear, and I'm sort of involved in the media, I'm still not clear whether he was I think he was cleared. But there you go. In my mind,
he was cleared.
Yeah, he was cleared. Okay.
He was cleared.
But I'm making the point. I'm not clear whether he was or wasn't.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Because you're saying it's such a grey area of the line that's drawn between the accusation
there was
and
so
then
much
getting cleared and all that.
Photos
but he was.
He
got damages in the end and all that.
Well, of course that just shows you. Okay, but it just shows you how unfair it all is.
No, you're right, because it still sticks in your head. Cliff Richard, you know, and the associations with his name.
What do we do, Emma? What do we do to protect people like Michael Vaughan?
What can you do?
I don't think we need to protect Michael.
I don't think you need to release their names into the media until it's
Oh no!
Until the case has been heard.
Emma, no, because you make the same mistake as the police college. The police college have just said, "No, we'll change things. Anyone who's accused of a crime, we're not going to put their name forward." That is completely
Of course it is.
Sorry, I
because
thought
other
that's what you
victims,
just said.
other victims
Exactly
can not
right.
then come forward and say, I can add to this case. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
So how do we protect Michael Vaughan? We can't.
We can't. Okay,
Should we?
I met the guy.
We should protect innocent people.
He's a real gentleman, and having been cleared of this accusation, I hope he's able to crack on with what has been a very successful commentary career. Now, what about this? In response to the comments of a Daily Mail columnist, are women who go grey guilty of giving up? Well, look, 2 out of 3 of the panel have gone grey.
No, I'm not grey.
I've gone white. Grey,
Emma, this story is a female journalist who suggested that the Queen of Spain, Queen Letizia, a very beautiful lady, she's got a white streak in her hair, and this particular journalist has said, yeah, well, she's let herself go.
Jerry, stop looking at my hair.
No, I'm trying to work it out.
But it's completely irrelevant.
It's lovely.
I don't want... Anyway.
Well, no, because we're talking about women, hair, and I was just saying...
But is that natural, Emma? That's what we need to know. Is that your natural colour?
Of course it's not.
Well,
These are very personal questions, aren't they?
No, I'm just...
What, I get blonde highlights put in my hair?
No, I don't know. I'm just asking.
Can I answer the question?
Please do.
Is that all right? I think it's tough on this one because there are real double standards. I know for a fact that men go grey without even thinking about it. Men in their 30s, men in their 40s go grey without even thinking about it. Women are under a huge amount of pressure, especially in the media, especially in the public eye, to maintain... Fiona Bruce has talked about this. She's talked about the amount of work it takes. Even today, I have to go into makeup for, 10, 15 minutes. The boys just get a brush down with a dusting with bronzer or whatever.
I'll be honest with you. It should be like Lord of the Rings. They should come in at 5 in the morning, if we're honest.
Well, they should come in at 5 in the morning.
Good.
But I mean...
Just rebuild from...
But it's also an armour. Being able to dye your hair, being able to put on makeup and things like that for women is also part of your kind of... It's something that gives you a kind of, strength and kind of... When you're feeling crap, putting on, getting your hair done, a blow dry and a face full of makeup can make you feel like $1 million when you're exhausted and you're washed out and whatever.
Emma, you haven't had your hair tinted before tonight's show, have you?
No, of course not. I've cycled in and arrived looking like a drowned rat.
Do you enjoy a quick blow dry before you come on air?
You can't beat a blow dry after lunch.
Now, listen, did you do Just for Men?
No, I dyed my hair once. When I was
and
gingery.
Men with dyed hair look ridiculous.
I was gingery blonde, and it looked ridiculous. And Nick Soames came up to me and said, Jerry Hayes, you've got a ginger Tom sitting on the top of your head.
Yeah, and the rest is history. Look, lots more to come. After this, the winner of this year's Apprentice is next.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Co.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions are, those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Co. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel. Net zero. David says, Mark, there's no climate emergency. There's no need for net zero. CO2 does not control temperature. Temperature controls CO2. Repeal the insane climate legislation now. Thank you, Dave. It's time for Mark Meets. And tonight, the winner of this year's Apprentice, the popular business-based reality show from the BBC. Having seen off competition from 17 other budding entrepreneurs, Marnie Swindles prevailed in the final with her vision for a nationwide chain of premium boxing gyms. Well, she packed a punch and scooped £250,000 worth of investment from Lord Sugar. We spoke earlier. Marnie, huge congratulations. Did you have any hesitation in signing up for the show in the first place?
No, I am an all-in kind of person. So I jumped in with both feet and hoped for the best.
Just how physically and mentally demanding is the appearance on that show?
Oh, incredibly hard. Very long days filming, a lot of pressure. You're constantly wanting to perform your best. So it was hard work, but all worth it in the end.
How real is it? To what extent is The Apprentice what you see is what you get? Or is there a lot of smoke and mirrors?
No, exactly what you see is what you get. We do have a very short time frame to create the products, if you can call them that, that we end up creating. But yes, it's an intense process, and everything that we do create is under pressure. So don't judge us too harshly. Definitely not. Tell me about those board meetings with Lord Sugar. You are a gold medal boxer, but even you must have been slightly nervous. Yes, I think both in the ring and in the boardroom, I had my fair share of beatings. It's intense, but I think one great thing about boxing is that it teaches you to be fearless. And I always think if you can get in the ring in front of hundreds of people and go to war, then it makes life in the boardroom easier. I am definitely more well equipped than some of the other candidates to duck, dive and weave Lord Sugar's criticisms. Now, did you competed against 17 other people. What do you feel, Marnie, gave you the edge? I think it was adaptability. I think being able to really commit to whatever the task was and not hold any hesitation or any inhibitions in doing whatever needed to be done. I mean, you'll see that from some of the situations I got myself into in Shropshire, where I was spanking Avi, all the way to having a go at my first oyster in Dubai, just really being willing to go for it and get my hands dirty, get stuck in.
Now, the last 5 on the show were women. Fantastic messaging for women in business.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's the second year it's happened, where it's been an all-female final. And I think it just shows the caliber of the women that go on the show, and that we are willing to do what it takes. No discredit to any of the men, though. I think they are all equally impressive candidates, and it could have been any of us.
Very diplomatic. I'm impressed. Now, you've actually achieved a lot prior to your appearance on The Apprentice. You're a lawyer, you're a gold medal boxer, and also you've achieved a potential massive investment for your sport projects. I think the figure bandied around was £300,000. What does this win mean for the rest of your career?
I think the sky's the limit now. There is so much that Lord Sugar can bring aside from the money. His expertise, his knowledge, his experience, albeit he doesn't know anything about boxing, he has confessed. But what he knows about business is unparalleled, and I don't think that I could have a better business partner in order to take this forward. And to have also Lord Sugar in the industry of boxing now as a sport, not just as my business, but as a whole industry, I think it's a really, really exciting chapter.
Are you going to do for boxing gyms what David Lloyd did for tennis clubs?
Even better, even better. There isn't, as it stands, one go-to place for boxing. There's a few boxing brands, there's boxing promoters that we all watch, but there isn't one go-to place when it comes to actually training in gyms. So I really want to seize that gap in the market, take the opportunity with both hands, and really see how far we can take it.
We love watching boxing, but how can you make this sport mainstream, given the fact that some people think it's rather dangerous?
Well, that is the exact mission that I'm on, is to let the world know that boxing really does belong to everyone, whether you care about fighting or not. Everybody has that tension and some demons inside them somewhere, and there's no better outlet for it than boxing. I think it is an incredible sport. And I mean, the slogan for our gym, Bronx, is beyond boxing, because I think it really does go far beyond the parameters of fitness and sport. It's something much deeper than that I think everybody can relate to.
What did boxing do for you in your life, Marnie?
The story is endless. Boxing's helped me with my career. I have found my partner through boxing. It's helped me physically. And that's the thing. Boxing has so many different avenues that people can find themselves through. Boxing clubs are this magical place where all different corners of the community come together. I met a barrister in the gym, and that's how I ended up on the career path I did.
Wow.
Yes, it goes on and on.
A very big boxing match this weekend, Anthony Joshua. Any predictions, Marnie?
Yes, I do believe AJ will bring it home. I think he is on a mission right now. He has a lot of points to prove, and I will be there. I will be there watching and cheering him on. He's London. We have to support our own. Even though I'm not from London, I'm from the north originally, but I'm an adopted Londoner now. So, Team AJ.
I'm glad to hear it. We'll have you supporting Spurs next.
I'll stick to boxing. I don't know anything about football.
And last but not least, take me through your business vision. What do you hope to achieve in the years ahead?
So my business is Bronx. It's a boxing gym. I would love for it to eventually be a chain of boxing gyms and a household name. We are on a mission to just prove that boxing really belongs to everybody, and that boxing should be more accessible, to encourage participation, and just let the world know about this incredible atmosphere and spirit that happens inside boxing gyms. I think there's a huge middle market gap between the spit and sawdust hearty gyms and those high-end boutique, often quite difficult to afford gyms. So I want to be that middle market option, and I'd like to expand as big as we can.
Now, Marnie, I don't have the authority or the budget to hire you. So lucky, Lord Sugar, but you are a star. Big congratulations.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Wasn't she an absolute delight? Marnie Swindles there, the winner of this year's BBC Apprentice. A busy hour to come. We got tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30 with my pundits. Some big stories coming hot off the press, let me tell you. But coming up next in my take at 10, millions of Brits now can't get a dental appointment. Have you had this problem? I'll be addressing a national scandal next. It's the ultimate kick in the teeth for punch-drunk, pandemic-exhausted Brits. So all of that to come. Keep those emails coming as well. mark@gbnews.uk. All of that to come. A big hour. Don't go anywhere.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now? Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
It's 10 o'clock and this is Mark Dolan Tonight. In my take at 10, millions of Brits now can't get a dental appointment. I'll be addressing a national scandal. With talk of 100 genders, will men and women soon become a thing of the past? Tonight's newsmaker is Kara Dansky, a top US feminist who says no, no, no. We've got the papers at 10:30 sharp, with reaction from three of the top pundits in the country. So, Mark Dolan tonight. Big guests, big stories, and always big opinions. A lively hour to come, but first the headlines with the always lively Aaron Armstrong.
Yes, even at 10 o'clock at night. Thank you very much, Mark. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom.
The adult film star at the centre of Donald Trump's indictment on criminal charges says the legal process could lead to violence, injuries and death. Stormy Daniels has told The Times she received death threats, and although she fears the reaction of Trump's supporters, this proves he's no longer untouchable. Trump has become the first US president in history to face criminal prosecution over an alleged payment to Ms. Daniels to keep quiet about their relationship a week before the 2016 election. Mr. Trump's lawyer says he'll plead not guilty on Tuesday. His former Vice President, Mike Pence, says it's a witch hunt.
It's clear to the overwhelming majority of the American people that this is nothing short of a political prosecution being affected by a Manhattan DA who literally campaigned on bringing charges against one particular American. And I must tell you that that should be offensive to every American, left, right, and center. Every American deserves equal treatment under the law.
The social media influencer Andrew Tate and his brother have been released from a Romanian jail on appeal, and they've been placed under house arrest until the end of April. Tate and his brother Tristan are being investigated on allegations of sexual assault, people trafficking and organised crime. The pair, who've been in custody since December, deny wrongdoing. Neither have been formally charged. A man has been charged with the murders of a father and son in Cambridgeshire. Gary Dunmore and his son Josh were found in separate villages near Huntingdon, 40 minutes apart on Wednesday. The 66-year-old Stephen Alderton has been charged with those murders and also with possession of a firearm. He's due to appear in court tomorrow. The Prime Minister says Britain's new trade deal will help unlock the benefits of Brexit. The UK has joined 11 Asia and Pacific nations in a trade pact that will boost exports by cutting tariffs on things like chocolate, cheese, gin and whiskey. Now, it's expected to be worth £1.8 billion over 10 years, although critics say it will only boost the economy by 0.08%. Ukraine's foreign minister has described Wimbledon's decision to lift its ban on Russian and Belarusian tennis players this summer as immoral. They will now be allowed to compete as neutral athletes in all British grass court tournaments, including Queen's. Dmytro Kuleba, though, has urged the UK to deny those players entry visas. And Volodymyr Zelensky says Ukraine will never forgive the Russians responsible for atrocities in the town of Bucha. Ukrainians have been marking the first anniversary of the town's recapture after 33 days of occupation. International investigators are in the process of collecting evidence where Ukraine says Russian troops committed war crimes, a claim Moscow denies. TV online, DAB, Plus Radio and on TuneIn. This is GB News, but strap yourselves in. It's the last hour of Mark Dolan Tonight.
Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight, and thanks to Aaron Armstrong, who's back in an hour's time. And yes, if you're listening on the radio, great to have your company. Perhaps you're driving a taxi, perhaps you're just doing some errands in the garden or in the shed, whatever you're up to on the radio, great to have your company. And thank you for watching anywhere in the world, on YouTube, of course, on Freeview, Sky, Virgin, you name it. If you're enjoying the show, if you're enjoying the channel, tell your friends, tell your family, and let's change the world together. A busy hour to come with talk of 100 genders. Will men and women soon become a thing of the past? Tonight's newsmaker is Kara Dansky, a top US feminist who says no, no, no. We'll be joining her live from the United States, where she's attending a demonstration. It could get lively. We've got the papers at 10:30 sharp with three of the top political pundits in the country. And indeed, lots more to come beyond. Big stories, big guests, and always big opinions. Let's start with my take at 10. Here's a story to get your teeth into. In an exclusive investigation, the Daily Mirror newspaper reports that up to 1 million Brits are unable to get an appointment with an NHS dentist, and some are resorting to ripping their own teeth out. The paper reveals a huge rise in so-called unmet need, with 1 in 4 adults either unable to get an appointment, languishing on a waiting list, or put off by long waiting lists and the cost. Another of those delightful consequences of lockdown that were unforeseen, apart from those of us who said it would happen. Trying to get a dental appointment during the pandemic was harder than getting an audience with the Queen. And we now have a legacy of 3 years of neglected dental health. And as you know, as well as I, whatever happens when you ignore problems with your teeth and you don't treat them early, you get problems. Mild sensitivity in a molar can, in a matter of months, become a large and dangerous cavity, sometimes too big to fill, once discovered, requiring painful and expensive labour-intensive root canal work. The government, the scientists and a largely uncritical media thought that drastically reducing health services for 2 years, with an NHS focused seemingly exclusively on one virus, was a price worth paying. You tell that to the 7 million people now waiting for treatment on the NHS. The public are indeed not happy, as confirmed by this graph, courtesy of the King's Fund and the Nuffield Trust. Public support for our National Health Service is at an all-time low. Why? Because for many Brits, you're more likely to win the lottery or knock Miley Cyrus off the #1 spot in the charts than get to see your GP this side of Christmas. And so the sorry tale of a COVID-centric NHS which prioritised the containment of a potentially nasty but largely mild virus over type 2 diabetes, cancer, dementia and other far worse illnesses is mirrored in our now wonky dental health services, which are in need of correction, polishing and straightening out. Of course, they cry for more money. Well, they probably should have thought of that before they smashed the economy into a brick wall, closing once viable businesses and paying healthy people to stay at home. This is all part of a wider picture of what, in my view, was the worst public health mistake in history. And as with so many other aspects of the pandemic, it's children who have paid the ultimate price, with kids suffering a litany of dental problems after 3 years of neglect. Now, thousands of kids can't even get on the books of their local dentist. This crisis of dental care is a prime example of our wildly underperforming public services. They were in trouble before the pandemic and COVID, but COVID was the straw that broke the camel's back. Dental services, like the wider NHS, need root canal and branch reform. It's time to extract waste from the system, drill down into those waiting lists, fill the gaps and deliver a service the public can smile about. For struggling Brits, this dental care crisis is yet another kick in the teeth. Now, what do you think? The government would argue that all of the COVID measures, including reducing access to dental services, was based on the advice of top scientists, and those measures saved lives and prevented the NHS from becoming overwhelmed. That is what they would argue. It's not my view, but what's yours? Mark at gbnews.uk. Let's get reaction now from top dentist to the stars, Dr. Anika Walia. Anika, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I don't want to smile too much in case you see my dodgy molars. Now, let's talk about this terrible...
Trust me.
I try. I do floss occasionally. Can you tell us about the terrible backlog in NHS dentistry and why it's happening?
So there is a national shortage of NHS dentists, and that is caused, obviously, because you've got to remember we're coming from a pandemic, the complexity of care caused by it, the increased demand caused by it, has left dentists feeling overworked and struggling to meet the increased demand. And you've also got to remember that there's a lack of funding in NHS dentistry, and there needs to be more. And I think one of the biggest flaws is the current NHS dental contract.
Mm. However, if people were allowed to go to Sainsbury's every day during the pandemic, why couldn't they go to the dentist, especially children?
I mean, you've got to remember that we're talking about COVID-19 and that one of the ways it could spread infection was airborne. And we had a lot of vulnerable people coming to dental clinics. And as a dentist, you're literally leaning over the patient's mouth. And I think it was done as a safety measure, but in the long run, obviously, with people not having access to a dentist, it caused a lot of damage.
So if you were the health secretary, how would you tackle this issue of NHS dentistry in the country?
I think there definitely needs to be urgent action taken. And the two things that need to be done, one is that there has to be a new NHS model carried out, and there needs to be long-term financial funding into the NHS that will support the NHS dentists and the work that they're carrying out.
Because the issue is many NHS dentists are giving up and going into the private sector, aren't they?
Yes. So from a recent survey actually carried out when 2,200 dentists were questioned, 75% of them admitted that they are more likely to reduce the NHS commitment in the next 12 months. And the reason why is because of the current NHS dental contract. So that works by UDA, which is Unit of Dental Activity, and it's a measure of the work carried out during the course of the dental treatment. But it actually bears little resemblance to the work that is actually being carried out. For example, an NHS dentist is being paid the same for whether they do one filling or a dozen on the same patient. And every dental practice that works with the NHS has an NHS UDA target that they have to reach. If they fail to reach that target, they face financial penalties. And if they choose to go beyond that target and provide extra care to their patients, they don't get paid for it. And I think the whole irony is that that actual contract model by the NHS doesn't focus on vital prevention in their targets. And any doctor or dentist with a medical dental background, we always say prevention is better than cure. But the prevention work is not in the UDA targets, and it makes things very, very hard. I think that's why there's so much of a crisis in the NHS and why so many NHS dentists are quitting and going private. And what's also interesting is that the Health Select Committee in 2008, so this NHS dental contract was proposed in 2006, yet in 2008, the Health Select Committee deemed the contract not fit for purpose, and yet the government still has chosen to do nothing about it.
And I've got many listeners and viewers to this show who can't even get on the books of an NHS practice. Forget about an appointment, they won't even get registered.
I know, and it's just very, very unfortunate because we have so many dentists working so hard. And I think even now, if we were to look at the statistics, in the last 2 years, nearly 6 million people failed to get an NHS dental appointment despite trying so hard. And I think if we had a new NHS model contract rolled out, more funding, it would allow people to have more access to NHS treatment, because it is estimated that the current NHS UDA contract that we have only supports half of the UK population. And I think the whole contract was done in the way to keep costs down, which it does in the patriarchy of the system. It definitely keeps costs down for the government, but it caps access and propagates inequalities of health. And I think so many people don't realise that.
Briefly, if you can, how bad was the pandemic for our teeth?
Awful. It was very, very bad because it left so many elderly people, especially, and I say elderly people first because a lot of them are wearing removable dentures. And some of them were in the process of getting the removable dentures and then had to stop, which meant that they couldn't eat. So the pandemic caused a lack of access to basic dental treatment, and not being able to have that access for almost 2 to 3 years obviously left the condition to being much, much worse. And so, yes, it was very, very terrible.
Final question for you. Do you think it's possible that one day dental services could exist outside of the NHS altogether? Do you think that NHS dental services are in an existential threat at the moment? Could they go?
Perhaps. I think if the government doesn't choose to support their dentists, then yes, it will go, because we're valued and overworked. And if there's no funding, how can you expect us to carry out the work? We're willing to carry out the work, but we need that support from the government. And if that doesn't come true, then yes, it could go. But let's see.
You are the dentist to the stars. Are you able to tell me any of the people whose teeth you've looked after?
All confidential information, I'm afraid.
Well, listen, do you think I could get an appointment?
Anytime. anytime.
I need a couple of molars. I could do with the wisdom tooth being taken out, even though I haven't got much wisdom. Anika, we're thrilled to have you on the show. Thank you for your honest and forthright answers there. It is clearly a crisis. Thanks for your considered response. Dr. Anika Walia, top dentist to the stars, and many other good clients as well. Next up, we're going live to the United States, where an ongoing women's rights demonstration is taking place. I've got a simple question for you next. Are men and women about to become a thing of the past? See you in 2.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan tonight. Now, don't forget, we've got the papers at exactly 10:30 sharp with 3 of the top political pundits in the country. But it's time now for The Newsmaker, in which we tackle a big story of the day in the company of a fearless commentator. Tonight, can a woman become a man or vice versa? That appears to be the dominant political question of the day. Those arguing for so-called gender ideology, which questions the idea of 2 biological sexes and believes there could be in excess of 100 genders, appear to be winning the argument in the media, within corporations and our public institutions, and in higher education. So is this idea of becoming any gender here to stay? With unisex changing rooms, biological men in women's sport, and being ordered to give your pronouns in meetings, has this woke ideology already won? To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome author and leading feminist Kara Dansky. Hi, Kara.
Hi.
Great to have you on the show. Now, I understand you're at a demonstration at the moment. Where are you and what are you demonstrating about?
Yes, thanks so much for having me. We are live at a courthouse in a small town called Athens, Ohio. And I apologize, I'm a bit weather blown. It's very windy here and it's raining a bit. It just started coming down. So there's a situation here in this town, which happens to be my hometown. There's a store which is owned by a woman. It's a woman-owned small business. And the owner's name is Amy, and she has posted the Declaration on Women's Sex-Based Rights in the front of her store, along with some other signs that say things like women don't have penises and no men in women's prisons and things like that. And she's getting a lot of harassment. And so we came today because there are people at her store right now protesting her and calling for a boycott of her store. So we decided rather than engage with that, we would come to the courthouse and we would just do our own women's rights demonstration. So we are here today to stand up for women's sex-based rights.
Do you think that this battle can be won?
Well, I absolutely think that we're going to win. I think that as more and more people come to understand what's going on, more and more people will come around. We've gotten a lot of support here today. We've gotten a lot of people showing thumbs up. We've gotten a lot of people punching their fists in the air. We have also gotten some of the more typical responses. Just a few moments ago, I hope it's okay to say this, some man just had a loud temper tantrum and called us a bunch of fascist bitches. So that was interesting. We have gotten a lot of middle fingers and we've just gotten a lot of profanity. But again, I want to emphasize we've gotten a lot of support as well.
And you're a leading feminist author. Do you see this as an attack on women?
Yes, unquestionably. Thanks for raising that. I wrote the book, The Abolition of Sex. I will have a book coming out later this year, and I'm really excited about that. But this is absolutely, unquestionably an attack on women. As many people saw with Kelly J. Keane in Auckland, there was no question that that was a physically violent attack. We have not gotten any physical violence today. We didn't know whether we should expect it or not. That hasn't happened. But this is unquestionably an attack on women. And, you know, we know that for thousands of years, women and girls were discriminated against on the basis of sex. And now we're sort of expected to turn around and pretend that sex isn't real. And women are standing up and saying, no, we're not backing down on this. We have our right to single-sex spaces. We have our right to single-sex prisons. And we have our free speech rights, and we're not going to shut up.
However, given the fact that you've now got corporations insisting that staff members announce their pronouns in meetings, you've got biological men who identify as female in women's sport, not world athletics, but other sports. Unisex changing rooms and bathrooms are becoming the norm. So how do you turn back the clock on this?
So you're absolutely right that all of those things are happening. The other thing is, all of those things are deeply unpopular, at least with the American public, and I assume with the public all over the world.
Yeah.
Radical feminists understand this issue probably better than many people, but ordinary average American voters and ordinary average Americans generally do not like this, do not want men in women's bathrooms, do not want men in women's sports. There's been polling that's been done that shows conclusively time and again that Americans, including Americans who describe themselves as liberal or left, are not okay with having men in women's sports or with men in women's bathrooms. So I think, our Democratic Party is unquestionably pushing this. And ordinary average Americans, including many rank-and-file Democrats, absolutely hate it.
However, Cara, people listening to this, especially if they're a trans woman or trans man, they may be offended by you referring to them as men. Surely the sort of courteous terminology is to identify them as trans women and trans men and to give them their relevant pronouns. All of these policies, unisex toilets, pronouns in meetings, it's there to make a group who are very vilified and prejudged against in our society feel included.
One of the things I said during our demonstration here is that women are female, men are male. That is true for all 8 billion people all over the world. And there's just no other coherent category of people who are somehow neither male nor female, or actually the opposite sex, or have somehow changed sex. There's just no credible evidence that any of that is true. So when you talk about a group that has suffered I would just argue that women have suffered vis-a-vis men as a class for thousands of years, and that's what we're here to address.
What do you think is the timeline for achieving your dream of ending this woke madness, Cara? Because I'm very sympathetic to what you've got to say. And on this programme, I've been on record as having the view that the world's gone mad, that we're ignoring basic biological facts. We're ignoring women's hard-fought sex-based rights. The world's gone mad. How long is it going to take to reverse this, do you think?
We'll keep going until it's done. I don't know, and I'm notoriously terrible at making predictions. And so I never make New Year's resolutions, but I made one this year, and I said I'm not making any predictions for the rest of 2023. So I'm not even willing to speculate on that, but I will say we are not going anywhere until this is won.
Listen, before you get struck by a water cannon, Cara, or that could be the weather in Ohio, can I just ask you about the political aspect of this? Has it become left versus right? Because I know lots of left-leaning socialist women, they'd be called liberals in America, who are very disappointed with how the left have adopted this ideology.
Yeah, it's terrible. And most Americans have no idea that we present a leftist, feminist critique of so-called gender identity. The media constantly paints this as the big bad Christian right up against a small marginalized community. And most Americans never hear a feminist analysis. They never hear a leftist analysis or a materialist analysis critiquing gender identity, because the media won't platform it because they know we're right.
More power to you, Cara. A privilege to have you on the programme, and all of those people out there demonstrating in Ohio today, thank you for your time. There you go, a courageous lady. Your reaction to what she's had to say? Is the idea of a man and a woman going to be a thing of the past? Will you find that acceptable? Mark at gbnews.uk. We've got the papers next. And, of course, keep those emails coming, Mark at gbnews.uk. But, yeah, the front pages are in. They're hot off the press. Lots to get through. Don't go anywhere.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Co.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit off.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Co. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel. Welcome back to Mark Dolan Tonight. It's time now for this. It is tomorrow's papers hot off the press, and we shall start with the Daily Mail, and they lead with the following. At last, a deal to turbocharge Brexit Britain. This was the topic of my big opinion, which I'm delighted to say Carl from our digital team has crafted into yet another viral video from the show. Britain's latest trade deal gives businesses access to a market that will become far larger than the EU. This according to the Trade Secretary, Kemi Badenoch, who you've got to tip as a future Conservative Party leader.
Way ahead of the game there, because you brought this up an hour ago on your show. You said it was going to be...
Cameras on mic, please.
Yeah, sorry. You said it was going to be the story that we would all be talking about over the weekend, and you're absolutely right.
Well, it is, because it's a good news story, and it's about growing our economy so that we can pay for those public services to which we are so attached. OK, Sam, where should we go next? Telegraph. OK, Telegraph lead with... Biden to turn down coronation invitation. President will not join world leaders, but may send First Lady as a show of support for the King. Michael Vaughan, my 2 years of hell, accused of racism but cleared by a cricket authority tribunal. Tough fines in pipeline for sewage dumpers is another story in a very grainy edition of the Daily Telegraph.
But that's a good story.
Well, we'll get to that story very shortly in the company of Jerry Hayes, whose voice you've just heard. The Independent next, is that right? Where should we go next? We've got The Independent. Trump faces 30 criminal charges, the first president to be indicted, and porn star who put him in the dock. Well, we've got a developing story on that one, because this young woman was supposed to be on the Piers Morgan Tonight Show on Talk TV, and she pulled out of the interview at the very last minute. So the plot thickens on that one. Indefensible. Former NATO chief backs the Independent newspaper's call to stop Afghan war heroes' disgraceful deportation. OK, next up. We've got the Express now. PM, Brexit is boosting UK. Rishi Sunak, only because we left the EU have we grasped our trade deal opportunity. Again, ties in with our big opinion discussion earlier. Charles Mania, crowds go wild for Climate King's winning performance. Of course, King Charles visiting Germany at the moment. The Mirror now. And O'Grady's legacy. For the love of Paul, donations to Paul O'Grady's beloved animal centre look set to hit 100,000 this weekend. Battersea Dogs and Cats Home features in the late star's hit TV show For the Love of God. Excuse me, For the Love of Dogs. Chief, I missed the pun there, haven't I? Just a bit. Chief Executive Peter Lorre said, we're overwhelmed and touched by these donations. 100k, just how generous are the British people? OK, next up. FT now, Trump to turn himself in as indictment rocks US politics. The Sun newspaper now. Gino drug bust. Sniffer dogs find dope on flight with Ramsey. I can't read tonight. Telly chef Gino DiCampo was caught with cannabis by police sniffer dogs as he flew into Britain. The Italian was given a warning after he landed with TV pals Gordon Ramsay and Fred Sirex at Farnborough Airport in Hampshire. DiCampo had been in Spain filming Gordon, Gino and Fred road trip. The source said Fred and Gordon were pretty cross. There you go. Plot thickens on that one. The Times, Trump will refuse to be handcuffed, vow lawyers. Unlimited penalties to water firms that pollute is the other story. The Daily Star, last but not least, man-baby Trump's huge tantrum over charges. The bigly unusual suspect. Incredible sulk, Donald Trump threw his toys out of the pram after finding ex-presidents might not be immune from the law after all. And those are your front pages. Reacting to them, three of the top political pundits in the country. Presenter Emma Wolfe, broadcaster Mike Parry, and former Conservative MP and now practising barrister, a man who actually works for a living, Jerry Hayes. And Emma, let's start, if we can, with what seems to be a very big story. It's bouncing across several of the papers. Donald Trump faces 30 criminal charges. Is there any way to the White House for this man at this point, do you think?
Well, it seems to be quite conflicting stories as well coming out. He seems to be, first of all, refusing to be handcuffed in some of the papers, but actually welcoming a bit of drama and a bit of handcuffing and then Stormy pulling out of the interview at another television station. So, I don't know. I can't really see a way back for him through all this. But I think it would be a very, very funny development if he did get back in, frankly.
But this is what he thrives on. It's noise,
he loves it all.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
He loves
Publicity.
it all.
Yeah.
And this is why John Kerry and who else was it was saying, Elon Musk was saying that, you know, if he gets handcuffed, if he gets arrested and has a show trial and all of that, he'll be absolutely guaranteed to be the next president.
You know, I worked in America for a number of years, the 80s and 90s, kept in touch with my political... They said he wanted to be handcuffed. This was going to be.
Yep.
And do you know what?
Show trial.
The moment... Exactly. The moment he said that, you look at all the opinion polls, Donald Trump's ratings are going up as his supporters say...
Us against the establishment.
Yeah, exactly, us against the establishment. This horrible nation is going against our hero and all that. And his ratings are going up. I mean, he is the absolute king of playing the game, isn't he?
Lots of people are laughing at his current legal travails, Emma, but he's a famous Anglophile. Would we not be better off with him in the White House next year?
Would we not? Should we invite him to the coronation instead of Biden? Because Biden's turned down the coronation invitation. I think Donald Trump would be here with bells on.
Yes,
Donald Trump would be here with Meghan and Harry.
Well, he would, wouldn't he? And
demanding a place on the balcony. To reunite the family.
He'll have a tag or something, won't he?
Won't be silenced. He won't be silenced. He'll have a camera crew as well.
Emma, you're so right on that. You know, Joe Biden, I'm Irish. You know, when a BBC reporter said to him, I'm Irish. No, you're not. You're American.
There isn't much detail. There isn't much detail in this Telegraph article about why he's turned down the coronation invitation. I'm wondering he's not well.
Well, let's talk about that, and I'm glad you took us onto it, Emma. Let me ask you, Jerry Hayes, Biden to turn down coronation invitation. This is a diplomatic slight, isn't it?
No, it's not at all. It's just
very rude.
Jerry, it is.
It's not extraordinary. Why would he want to do that? Biden seems a decent guy. He supports what we're doing in Northern Ireland. Just one of those things.
Oh, Jerry, honestly.
Oh, come on. OK, Mike
It's one of the biggest, after the Queen's funeral.
No, hang on.
Surely it's the biggest event.
You tell us why you think Biden has slighted the king.
Let me just say this. This week has been a great week for the royal family, has it not? You know, the king has been in Europe. He was supposed to go to France first. He went to Germany now. He has been magnificent in the way that he's with charm and humour and embracing all nations. So then Joe Biden decides, I'm not going to come. I think it's a disgraceful slight against our country. OK, Joe, if you don't want to come, that's up to you. But let me tell you this. It has been proven this week that the king is still the most powerful, soft politician in the world, and you should get on board.
I think it's an odd decision.
Read the Telegraph article.
Emma.
Well, I've read it online.
Oh, what's it say?
It doesn't give much detail.
It's a spectacular insult. I don't need to read the article. He's not going to be there. What an insult. An insult to Britain.
I don't think it's an intended slight because he's planning to send the first... He may be sending the First Lady instead. I think it's odd. I think he's not well
if he wants to. But the bottom line is that this is our head of state.
It's very odd. And this is the biggest global event. After the Queen's funeral, the coronation of the English, of the British king. Come on, it's a big deal.
I wonder whether it's proof that we need him back in the White House. Because Joe Biden and the Democratic Party don't like Britain. When we had Brexit, Barack Obama said we'd be at the back of the queue for a trade deal. Do you remember that?
And we weren't.
I remember it very well.
And we weren't.
And haven't we got a trade deal?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, no.
Well, Donald Trump the ink was barely dry on the trade deal before he left office.
Yeah. Mark, excuse me, get back to Emma. You're a defender of women's rights, OK? Do you not think it's a terrible insult that the President of the United States of America said, I haven't got time to go to the coronation.
He didn't say that.
I'll send my wife. I'll send my wife.
It's not what he said. I think.
How does that sit, honestly?
Well, in a way, he's saying the First Lady is as important as the President. I think we need to hold fire on him saying, I can't be bothered to come. That's not what he said. That's not what the article says, OK?
Shall we just find out
So shall we just find out? I think he made
Jerry, you don't know why. You're trying to make out you do know why, but you don't know why.
I'm saying let's find out why.
But his absence will be noted, and I wonder whether he's not going because he's worried that when he gets there, he'll forget the King's name or something.
Oh,
yeah.
Wicked.
Yeah.
Or not find his way back to Air Force One.
Diana or something.
Yeah.
No.
Or maybe not find his way back to Air Force One to get home or something like that.
Zero.
Yeah. We don't need any more sort of, people that aren't particularly independent living in this country that need care from the NHS. So, frankly, it'll save us a fortune if he stays in America. But
Open sewers is the story.
Let's talk sewers. Go for it.
Open stories,
Tough
right.
fines in pipeline for sewage dumpers. Tell me more.
It's not. The government, I'm afraid, has been quite disgraceful. It started with Liz Truss, and now you've got Theresa Coffey, who's just saying we're not going to really fine the people who are polluting our rivers. Now, Fergal Sharkey, do you remember Fergal? You remember.
A fantastic man.
A great man.
A good
man.
Heart these days is hard to find.
I don't want to lose any viewers or listeners. Do you mind? Carry on. As you were.
Okay. Yeah. And he's
trying to build an audience.
He's been saying for years, what's happening to our rivers, the pollution, the sewage is appalling. And he's right. Well, what are we going to do about
Producer
it?
Cal,
Jerry, you've got no answers, obviously.
Producer Cal at the meeting today, he's a clever lad.
Yeah.
He suggested that the CEOs of these water companies go to jail.
Well, I wouldn't be against that because they pay themselves huge dividends, don't they?
No, never mind that.
Yeah.
£500,000 plus £2 million bonuses.
The millions of litres of human waste that were being discharged into the seas last summer. It was absolutely appalling.
Absolute disgrace.
Really
I agree.
disgusting.
Something has to be done, but Jerry talks a big game but has no answers.
I do.
What's the answer then?
Fine them. Fine them. Okay. Stop the sewage going into our not swimming pools, obviously.
It's our seas.
No.
What do we think of celebrities, Emma Wolf, getting caught with drugs? TV chef Gino D'Acampo was caught with cannabis by police sniffer dogs as he flew into Britain. The Italian was given a warning after he landed at a British airport with Gordon Ramsay and Fred Surex. They are the stars of Gordon, Gino and Fred, The Road Trip.
Here's my question. If I'd been found with cannabis on a flight, would I have been given a warning or would I have been hauled into the local slammer and, strip searched? I mean, these young black boys are being strip searched all over the country, even young girls. Children, 10 to 15, that was one of the big news stories of the week, are being strip searched. Here's Gino D'Acampo.
Kids of 10
some as young as 8. Some young girls.
I think we have to be quite careful about this story because, of course, we don't have any evidence. It's some front page, so it's all allegations.
Mr. D'Acampo is not in a position to defend himself.
And all we're doing is reading a newspaper headline.
Exactly, as we were doing with Joe Biden, I might remind you.
I can see, I can see a lawsuit coming on here. It cheers me up tremendously. Gino, drugs bust? Really?
Yeah.
Where's the evidence in that story? Where's the evidence in that front page story?
Well, is this trial by media? Are we being very unfair on this?
No, it is.
No, look,
Probably, for all we know, he was just travelling with garlic and other ingredients for his spaghetti alla carbonara or something.
Well, then Clemmy Moody at the Sun has been a very silly girl.
He probably travels with oregano.
It's a great front-page headline.
And the sniffer dogs got
But we have to be very careful about how we discuss the story, that's all.
There you go. And listen, if you're watching Mr. D'Acampo, if you want to sue anyone, sue Mike, because he's absolutely loaded.
Absolutely
We've got more papers next. Don't go anywhere.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island's story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Welcome back to the show. I've got a fantastic team, by the way, and a warm welcome to Sophia, who has joined us in prime time, making a fantastic immediate contribution, as have the entire team. I've got the dream team here on Mark Dolan tonight, including in front of me and next to me, Jerry Hayes, no less, Mike Porky Parry and Emma Wolfe. Let's have a look at another of the front pages, and it's The Guardian. And Tories turning rivers into open sewers, says Starmer, which I think is a headline that will resonate. And Wimbledon lifts ban on Russian and Belarusian players. Well, let's go straight to that now, because, as I've just said, Russian and Belarusian players will be allowed to compete at Wimbledon and the British grass court tennis tournaments this year. Both the players and Russian or Belarusian support staff must sign the neutrality agreements in order to be accredited at the events. So what do we think? Should athletes be punished for their nation's actions, or is it right to lift the ban? Jerry?
Yes, of course they should be punished. There's a war going on in Europe. The Russians are behaving disgracefully. The Belarusians are behaving disgracefully. Do we just ignore it? Do we just pretend it's all about sport? No, it's not. Should be banned.
Chance to send a strong message to the Russians. Athletes are not welcome here.
Well, I totally agree with Jerry here. The point is, you could say, because one of the questions that's being asked, Emma, is that is it fair that an individual has to pay for the crimes of his country? I'm afraid it is. Do you remember a great footballer called Ordeal, OK? Who played for Spurs, Argentinian. And then, of course, the Falklands War happened. Ozzy lost his job at Spurs and had to leave this country. So life isn't fair, but if your country, and if you have been brought up and you swear allegiance to your country, if your country then makes mistakes, I'm afraid you have to pay for them. I think it's a disgrace that Russian and Belarusian tennis players of natural birth from Russia and Belarus are going to be allowed to play at Wimbledon.
I could not disagree more with you two, I'm afraid.
Okay.
A Russian tennis player is no more responsible for the madman that is Vladimir Putin than I am responsible for the decisions of Rishi Sunak.
Right. Hitler Games, 1936.
It's totally unfair. It's totally unfair to ban Russian. They may have been working. They may be young players coming up.
They were brought up in Mother Russia.
Yes.
Right. So they have to abide.
And they have a madman as their president.
That's right. But they have
that
to
is
abide.
not their fault.
They have
and
to
they
abide
are tennis players who have been working all their lives to play at these big tournaments.
In many cases,
why on earth would you punish them? Do something. This is, you know why they do this? Because they can't do anything about Vladimir Putin. Because we've been utterly toothless about Putin.
In many cases, those banned from last year's Wimbledon tournament were openly critical of the Russian regime. Is that not enough?
No, it's not enough.
They flagellated themselves in public. They said, I'm ashamed of my country. They did all of that, and it wasn't enough.
I've taken all your points, and of course, you know, you make very great selling points, but the point is, you've got to make it clear that anybody who's Russian or Belarusian is not welcome in the civilised world.
Punish him.
You have to.
Punish him,
Whoa,
not them.
No, hey, not quite.
What you've got to do is you've got to make sure that anybody Russian or Belarusian is no longer welcome in the civilised world.
These are called sanctions, and Putin doesn't give a damn about sanctions.
You've got to put pressure on from the bottom upwards.
It doesn't change anything.
How can you say no one is welcome who Russian or Belarusian is welcome in the civilised world?
If they support Putin, they're not welcome.
No. It's what it all represents.
Jerry, you're a barrister. If they support Putin, they're not welcome. So if they want to show they don't support Putin, then come out with a statement and say, I want to play at Wimbledon and I want to make it clear.
And you think that's safe? You think that's safe as a Russian to criticise your country?
No, of course it's not safe.
It's not safe for them to say that.
It's brave, and they've got to be brave about it.
That is so wrong. 100 guineas, please.
No, I'm not wrong.
That will do it. How about some good news? Say the Telegraph, a glass of wine a day is not going to kill you. That means, Mike Parry, you've got quite a few years left, I would have thought.
These two are doing all right,
that's very harsh.
Would you care to break the fourth wall and tell our viewers and listeners where you were whilst I was interviewing celebrity stars from The Apprentice?
We had a bottle of red wine.
No, excuse me, Jerry, you're not allowed to reveal that.
Aren't we?
I was out taking some legal advice from Jerry Hayes, who's a barrister.
In a bar.
From a barman.
While I was doing my research on the papers.
Excuse me, Emma, what's your definition of a bar?
Somewhere they serve wine, I don't know.
Well, in the daytime for Jerry, it's the judiciary, but unfortunately on Mark Dolan tonight they sneak off to the local across the road. But it is good news, and we hear this every couple of weeks that alcohol's good for you or bad for you.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
What's your official position on alcohol? Do you think, Mike? I mean, you've dodged a few health scares in your time.
My official position on alcohol is that, in moderation, as in most things, it is a good thing.
Yes.
It's a stimulant.
Do you think you'll try that at some point, moderation?
Well, I haven't tried it so far.
Would you like to tell the viewers about what's it called? Morning Glory, the one that you drink in the morning. Morning prayers.
Morning prayers.
It's a pint of water and a pint of champagne, and he has it at 10:30 in the morning.
I think
I don't need more. I don't need more.
Aren't we sick of these health police?
Yes.
You know, taking away all the stuff that we enjoy.
Yes.
Butter, wine, red meat.
Yes. When I was a journalist, when I was at Punch...
You were never a journalist.
I was a journalist, Mike.
Come off it. You were a politician, you were a barrister.
I was a journalist, but let me tell the story.
Yes,
a young hack. What happened, Mike Parry? We used to have what we called sharpeners at 11:30.
We called them
for our
actually.
11:30 meeting, and then we used to go and have a few bottles of wine with the editor, and then I was sent to the House of Commons to get a story. That's, my friend, is journalism.
And do you know what, Jerry? At the end of that, it was always, well, we better go now to get home in time for lunch.
Oh, for God's
exactly right. My thanks to a well-lubricated Mike Parry and also, of course, Jerry Hayes and the wonderful Emma Wolfe. Thank you for your company. I enjoyed every minute. We're back tomorrow at 9 for Mark Dolan tonight. My big opinion, my take at 10, and all of the above. But next up, it's Headliners.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest broadcast from the Met Office. Cloudy and damp start to the weekend, but it should improve as we move into Sunday, more in the way of sunny spells developing. Today's low pressure system is moving out the way, but it does leave a legacy of cloud, outbreaks of rain across the UK on Saturday. But into Sunday, high pressure starts to build in. Yes, it will lead to some chillier nights, but we should start to see more in the way of sunny spells. Not many clear spells this evening and overnight. This low pressure still bringing outbreaks of cloud and rain, particularly across central southern parts of England into Wales, across the Northern Ireland. The rain steady here, outbreaks of heavier rain possible too. Temperatures holding up though, as a result, largely mid-single figures. But it does mean a cloudy start to Saturday morning. Best of the sunny spells across northern Scotland. A few glimmers of sunshine possible down the western side of Scotland into northwest England as we move into the afternoon. But a lot of cloud around. Drizzly outbreaks of rain moving in from the North Sea to affect eastern areas, and in this weather front weakening later on, perhaps turning a bit drier and brighter. And temperatures overall in the west, 14-15 Celsius, but a cool feel, that easterly breeze in the east. Into the evening time, patchy rain pushes a little bit further westwards. This weather front's still giving some rain across parts of Northern Ireland, fringes of Wales and western Scotland too, but a lot of cloud around once more heading into the early hours of Sunday. Perhaps one or two clearer spells developing eventually. Eastern Scotland, northeast England, so turning a little chilly here, but elsewhere temperatures holding up. A frost-free start for many on Sunday. Yes, a cloudy start, but it should soon start to brighten up. We'll see more in the way of sunny spells developing as we move through the day. And for most, it will be a much drier, brighter afternoon on Sunday, and temperatures, again, not too bad, reaching towards the mid-teens. And then high pressure holds on into the beginning of next week too. Monday and Tuesday, plenty of sunny spells too.
Jack, well done, Sam. Really busy 3 hours. Well done.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people